Donovan, you have 4 minutes, so you're welcome to wait, or you can stand up there and just a clicker until it's time, whatever you want, but you will start right on time. Just so you know. Now's a good time to press the clicker. Now's a good time to press the clicker. Yeah. Make sure it works. Get comfortable up there. You've got 45 seconds. Okay. And I'll tell you when to begin, okay? Okay. I'll picture it. This is good, thank you. Okay, Donovan, when you're ready.
Hello everybody, my name is Donovan Elgin, and this is my senior presentation. For my extended metaphor, I chose airplanes. That is because this summer I'll be attending Embry-Riddle in Florida to pursue a degree in aerospace engineering. And I can describe my entire high school career like an airplane taking off. And I can divide my high school career into 3 different subcategories. The first part of my high school career, the first few years, was like an airplane taxiing. I needed to learn what to do. I hadn't taken off yet. I wasn't moving very much because I needed to learn what was expected of me and how to reach those expectations. The middle of my high school career was like an airplane taking off. I was headed towards the right direction, and it is the first step towards my destination, just like how an airplane taking off is its first step. And the last years of my high school career is like an airplane cruising. I am on my way towards a degree in aerospace engineering, just like how a cruising plane is on its way towards its own destination. Now, for my first standard, I chose science with the growth as the attached ideal. And I connected this to an airplane during pre-flight when they are checking the systems. For my first artifact, I have an enzyme lab for my 9th grade biology year. The requirements were that we write about the hypothesis, results, the data, the procedure, and the conclusion. Fortunately, this was all that I had written, and it was way below the required. It was way below the requirements. I had put very little effort into the assignment. Mrs. Grade noticed this, and she said, "This looks like a small part of the conclusion and nothing else. You're missing the other 3 parts of the lab report sheet." As a result of my low effort, I received a low grade. And so I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't asking for help, and I had no idea what to do. And so I was stuck there. They needed to grow. I needed to grow out of it. With my second artifact, I have my first semester final from 11th grade biology. It was the requirements were that we write about the mammoth extinction and whether or not they should be brought back to life. We only had the class period to work on this with time before class to prepare our evidence and our reasoning for the assignment. I feel that I did a lot better on this assignment due to the extra effort that I had put in for my evidence beforehand. For example, I talked about how because there are few plants, the CO2 level begins to rise due to a lack of photosynthesis. This causes climate change, which in turn killed the mammoths. Mrs. Gray also noticed this extra effort, and she said, "I really agree with your assessment. I agree with your assessment. I really like that you discussed how the ice age occurred and went away. It is great, and no one else did that." And due to the increased effort I put into the assignment, I was able to get a 4 on the first semester final. To conclude science, my plane was taxiing. I needed to get off of the ground. I needed to grow. And I learned to ask for help and to find out what was required of me and how to achieve those requirements. For my second standard, I chose my elective. Now, my elective is a bit different than electives that most people take. My second semester, 11th grade elective was different than what most people would normally take. This was the Idaho Science and Aerospace Scholars elective. It is competitive to get into, and it is an introduction to aerospace engineering. I learned about spacecraft design, orbital mechanics, and it made my interest in aerospace take off like an airplane. One of the assignments for the project was a group project that we had been working on that was to be worked on the entire year. The requirements were that we design a crewed mission to any place that is feasible to go to. And my group, we chose Mars to go to. And this is just a small part of my contribution to the final, and I'm proud that I was able to delegate systems properly in order to maximize their functions, such as using RCS thrusters during the descent and using terrain relative navigation, which was also used for the Perseverance mission. And as a result, my group got full points for the project, which I am very proud of. My second artifact I have, also from the same class, is a solo project, and I was to design a lunar base. I am proud that I was able to account for emergencies such as an accident on the landing pad, in which case a backup landing pad will be used, and as well as a sudden burst of radiation where the crew will evacuate to another habitation module, and even a power outage where they'll use the original power source to power the base, as well as fuel reserves and fuel cells. Now, I consider this to be an achievement because not only was I able to get into the competitive class, but I was able to become one of the top 80 students in there. And as a result, I was able to attend the ISAS Summer Academy, where I did another group project, as you can see in the first picture. It was also a mission to Mars that I helped out with other students. I helped out with the propulsion systems, finding out how much fuel we'll need, and as well as a small contribution to the main design. I also talked with astronauts like Wendy Lawrence, and I also was able to visit the Europa Clipper spacecraft under construction at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. for my final standards, I chose math. It's in conclusion, it was my first introduction to aerospace engineering, and as mentioned before, I was able to be one of the top 80 students. Which allowed me to go to the academy, as mentioned previously. It was also my first step towards my destination, just like how an airplane taking off is its first step towards its destination. For my final standards, I had chosen mathematics, and with the attached ideal of mastery, just like how a plane is mastering the skies during its cruising phase. For my first artifact, I have the Math 3 final. It covered topics like logarithms, rationals, trigonometry, polynomials, and everything required to move on to calculus. Due to the effort and time I put into studying, I was able to get a high grade on the test, which proved that I was ready to move on to calculus. For my second artifact, I have my Calculus Chapter 5 test, and it covered topics such as limits, rate of change, derivatives, optimization, and integrals. I also got a high grade on this assignment due to the time and effort I spent studying, which proved that I am ready to move on to even higher forms of mathematics that I will encounter in college and during my career. To conclude math, mastery is the ultimate goal in the growth process, and it is the whole reason why I grow. And just as I mastered mathematics, which allows me to reach any destination, a cruising plane can reach any destination that it chooses. In overall conclusion, the process of growth is never easy. You encounter failure and defeat, but as long as you learn from that failure, you will be able to grow. You will be able to grow, and this process of growth eventually leads to mastery, which will enable you to reach any destination and to soar high and reach your full potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Donovan. We will maybe finish up some rubric notes and then ask you some questions.
So I have a question for you. What are you looking forward to that you get to learn? Like, have you looked into the different classes that you're going to be taking?
Yes. Well, there's 4 different categories of aerospace engineering.
Uh-huh.
I believe it's space, and then the aerospace, which is like airplanes, and then aeronautics and astronautics. And I haven't fully decided on which one I will be taking yet, but once I start taking some of the base classes, then I'll decide.
Gotcha.
Thanks for your presentation. It was nice to see your metaphor. You really painted a story for us of kind of your passions and interests, and your elective was cool. I didn't know as much about that, so My question is, you have done a senior research paper. What
Yes.
was your topic and what did you learn, whether it be like the ideas that you researched, what were some cool takeaways, or in the writing process, what did you learn?
So I did my senior research paper on urban design, and some of the things I learned about is that you have to be, you can't force something, because like when people live in cities, you can't force someone to live. You can't force people to take public transportation, for example. You can't force them where to work or where to live, and so you have to apply the correct amount of, I can't think of another word for control, but kind of control.
Okay.
A certain amount of control.
Okay, so are you saying you almost have to like design around people instead of like forcing people to live within your design?
Yeah, like
Okay.
design with people in mind.
Okay, perfect.
I have a question about the math that you now are prepared to do. But you mentioned that, but also in the summer, what was it again? The summer academy that you got, and the habitats that you designed. Did you use math for that?
Yes, I used the rocket equation, and yes, and I used a lot of math for it. I should have showed that. I had a whole spreadsheet and like they'd be like, hey, we're gonna modify this. It's like, okay, just type it in, and it goes through all the equations and it pops out some necessary information for the project.
Good answer.
Cool, cool, cool.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, Donovan.
Thank you.
Oh, you're available. It was a bit guilty and really
Yeah, I do feel comfortable.
Yeah. Those things are so loud. All right, Ellie, your presentation is ready. Oh, yep. Yep, you are gonna start right on time, so you still have about 3 minutes until
Awesome.
you're gonna go, just so you know. Thank you, Miss Gregg. Oh, thank you.
Just have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Just gonna stand here awkwardly for 2
Mhm.
minutes, I guess.
She coming?
Yeah,
That's the best way to plan your moves.
Exactly.
Stand there up.
I was doing my superhero poses too.
Oh, there you go.
psychologically
You
works.
got that.
Exactly. Doing my positive affirmations in the car.
I heard it in Norway too.
Oh yeah, I was indoctrinating people into it.
Into positivity.
Exactly.
I feel like that's okay.
I would agree.
I would agree.
I think for that,
Brainwash
you guys
them.
should just give me all fours already.
Ella was chanting things in the hallway, of course. Amazing at chanting. Okay, forget about that.
Really art, actually. You helped me too, but I'm like, blah. Yeah.
That's right.
Positive influence.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ella Daisy, and this is my senior presentation. So ever since learning about this assignment, what was really, really important to me was being able to perfectly encapsulate these past 4 years and everything that they have meant to me. And I believe I've been able to do that with my extended metaphor of pottery. So with that, history is that foundation of clay. Science is the process of shaping and molding. And apprenticeship is that finalization process of painting and firing your pottery. So with that, I have my third standard of history, which is under the ideal of achievement. Now with this assignment, it was taken from my American history class, which was my junior year, second semester. And the specific assignment was the Giver Presentations, chapters 22 through 23. Now what was really imperative with this assignment was that we took a deeper look inside of the book, The Giver. We took a look at the philosophical, moral, and ethical values found within it, and we wanted to connect that back to our teachings, who we were teaching and what we were teaching to. So the mindsets and the worldviews of those students. So with that, my group found it best to take textual evidence off to the side and break that down into 3 guiding questions. Now the purpose of these guiding questions was to lead our students to that macro, to really make sure that they understood why we were teaching and what we were teaching and how they're able to take that into both themselves as well as the world around them. And as we can see from this highlighted section below, I did receive a 4 on this. And I would also like to pay mine to the assignments above that. Now I believe it was the repetition of each of these assignments, being able to take the skills and the specific traits from each of these assignments that was really able to help me build a collective tool set that really helped me achieve that overall 4. Now for my second artifact, that was from my American government class that I took this semester, and it was my semester 1 midterm exam. Now just some background information on this exam. It was a several page exam, and where I really, really flourished was in that free response section. Some really important details about that rubric were that we had to take unit structure as well as evidence from our readings that we had done that past semester. And I did that exceptionally well in this final question, where I took the Thomas Hobbes Leviathan, which is one of our first readings, as well as our unit on natural law, and our daily recitation quote of If Men Were Angels. Now these were all really, really imperative to the way that we learned and what we had thought throughout these past semesters. So we took each of the details, even though they were from different points in our semester and different points in our units, we took them and we built connections within them. And that was truly what we wanted to learn from this. Now, what I call an achievement is this feedback from Mr. Nelson himself. He reads, "Ella, you have truly earned congratulations. Your explanations are thorough as appropriate and expansive. Dead-on analysis and intuitive connections between stats and primary sources." Now that to me is an achievement. An achievement is not just a grade in the grade book, it's not just a percentage in Power School. Being able to achieve is being able to take the motivators that teach diligence, that teach grit, and that teach determination. Is being able to take all of those aspects of your life and really achieve within them. It's molding that foundation of clay, making sure you have a strong base and a strong foundation, because without that, you aren't able to grow on top of that. So with that, you take that foundation of clay. You learn what you're masterful in and what you're still proficient in and what you need to grow to make that a strong foundation. Now for my second standard, which is science, that is under the ideal of mastery. So for my first artifact, that was taken from my sophomore year environmental science course, and the specific assignment was purchasing and supporting greener products. Now this assignment, some background information on it, it was a multi-page reflection that signified the end of our unit that we had just covered, which was on pollution and climate change. Now I have two specific excerpts I want to read off. The first is in this first paragraph, which reads as following. Air, land, and water pollution are also dwindling under the pressures of the foundations of production. By continuing to use these resources, companies and corporations are adding to the issues of pollution, as well as increasing their carbon footprint. Now this really shows that I have been able to dig my roots into the base understandings of this assignment, that I've been able to pick out those key details and those key definitions of pollution, what types of pollution and climate change. However, it was my second excerpt that really showed mastery. Taken from down here in my third paragraph, it reads, can this item be recycled? Can I reuse this item? How am I able to utilize the item even when it's no longer in use? Now this is more or less my call to action to the audience. I have proven that I have mastery, that I understand the subject, and now I'm reaching out into my inner circles, into my community, and into my society, being able to teach them the facts based off the wisdom I have learned from these courses. Now that is mastery. For my second artifact, this is from my honors biology course that I took my junior year, and this was my semester 1 midterm CER. Now the CER was based off of the thesis question of should we bring mammoths back to life if we had the technology to do so? And two imperative things on that rubric were that we used vocabulary and that we used evidence. And I did that exceptionally well in this first page, which I used terms such as food chain, overhunting, and extinction, as well as evidence from the Daily Science, the bluefin tuna case study, which we actually did in class, as well as the National Park Service. Now, even though these were taken from different parts in that unit, different parts in the semester, even on a different species entirely, I was able to build those connections, and I was able to show that even though they were from different aspects of life, that they all did show a meaningful connection. And if there's one thing Compass has taught me, it's that mastery is not just a 4. Mastery is being able to build connections from different parts of your life, different parts of classes, and being able to synthesize those together. Now, I would also like to evidence this mastery as the grade I got for it, which was a 4, but also specifically the feedback I got from my teacher, Mrs. Grade. She wrote, "I agree with your self-assessment, and you are welcome. Your model and explanations are wonderfully detailed, and you discuss a lot of scientific terminology with a lot of great supporting evidence." Now that, to me, that is mastery. Mastery is being shaped and molded and formed into an image for success, giving you the tools necessary to take the leading steps in growth, development, leadership, and achievements. So mastery is being shaped, it is being formed. You're taking different resources from peers, from teachers, from parents, and you're making sure that you are building yourself and forming yourself into this ideal image, this image of mastery, this image of success. Now we do that same thing with pottery. We make sure that we take different techniques, different tools, and we're forming that into the ideal shape of what we want, whether that's a specific vase shape or a specific pot shape. We're making sure that we're taking that pot and we're using that technique and molding and making sure it's being able to utilize in the correct way, the way we want it to be utilized. So, for my 7th standard, that is on apprenticeship under the ideal of so what? Now, just some background information on what my apprenticeship was. This was a 40-hour commitment to either a company or an individual based on my career orientation. For me, that was psychology. Psychology had always been a huge passion of mine for the past 4 years, and I had really sparked that my freshman year. So I wanted to continue on with that path. Now for that, I reached out to a local clinic in GPS psychology. Now they specifically did treatments on OCD as well as anxiety, and this was really important to me since I had really wanted to follow into that mental health field, go more clinical. So I did my supervisor with Olivia Fields, and this was her evaluation of me after I had finished my 40 hours with her. Here she wrote that I was consistently eager to learn, to build my knowledge of the psychology field, and also I showed growth throughout my time with this apprenticeship. This had truly shown that I had dug my roots in, and I'd really shown that passion for psychology, and that I really valued what this apprenticeship was, and I wanted to pursue that to its fullest extent. However, things did change slightly with my second artifact, which was my final reflection newsletter. Now, this newsletter was taken from self-assessments and self-reflections that we had done throughout the entirety of that apprenticeship course. Now, we had concluded all of that in this newsletter. And I'd like to point out one sentence specifically, which was in the middle here, which reads, "I was able to solidify my love for the field and my desire to go into the field." And even though that remained true at the time, it still remains true now. However, my views had shifted slightly. I still love psychology, and that's still a desire I have to go into that field. That's still what I plan on pursuing this year at Idaho State University this fall. However, instead of doing clinical, I want to go into more industrial organizational psychology. I learned from this class that clinical mental health wasn't for me. They did not match up with the standards I had given myself, or the goals I had given myself. I wanted something different, something that would be more fulfilling to myself. So that's why I chose industrial organizational psychology. This is my so what. So throughout high school, I had been prompted with the opportunities that have prepared me for and given me a head start to my role of my future. This remains true. So with pottery, you want to put that final presentation on. You want to make sure you are crafting yourself perfectly, that you are setting yourself up for that success with the utilization of your tools. You're taking that achievement, you're taking that mastery, and you're molding yourself into this image for success. Now, all of that is presented in this so what, in this final presentation of who you are. That apprenticeship course did that with me. I was able to pursue what I wanted, know what I wanted to do. And even if my major ends up changing, or even if I don't find that love for psychology once I start school, This apprenticeship course had given me the tools necessary to take the following steps when I decide to change my major, or if anything happens that would encourage that. So this apprenticeship course had really molded me into that ideal of who I wanted to be, and given me that final push into that presentation of myself. So overall, lessons learned. Compass has taught me so many lessons, and it was really hard to narrow it down to 3, but I tried my best. So my first one is failing forward is the first step to achievement. You cannot achieve if you do not have that solid foundation. If you do not have that constant state of who you are and you don't try to solidify that. You aren't able to mold yourself on top of that, and you do that by failing forward. The second one is the importance of shaping yourself through mastery. Taking those resources and taking those tools to truly shape yourself into this ideal image. And being confident in who you are and who you have become, and to never shy away from the opportunity to grow. If there's one thing Compass has taught me overall, it's that I should never shy away, and that these opportunities are given to me so I can learn and so I can grow. I will never stop learning after high school. This graduation does not signify the end of my learning career. I will continue on to learning in high school and throughout my workforce and even in retirement. You don't stop the learning, ever really. And then, thank you, and any further questions?
Thank you, Ella. All right, we are probably going to finish our notes for just a sec, but whenever a judge is ready to ask you a question, they
No
will.
worries, I'm excited.
Okay, we are too. Okay, time if you guys are curious. All right, Ella, thank you for presenting. I liked hearing about your journey, and it seemed like, in addition to the meaningful metaphor, I liked seeing the idea that you strung throughout that 4s aren't the goal.
Mhm.
It's like more than a 4, and you should be connecting your learning throughout, which was good to hear that you had that in multiple ideals. So that was nice to hear. Good job. One of my questions is, speaking of 4s and making connections and learning and after learning and things like that, you did a senior research essay, and you were able to do it on mental health, and you mentioned OCD, and I know you did some of your research on, social media and stuff. Can you just share about what you learned in the research process, writing process,
Yeah, absolutely.
and then any significant takeaway of actual learning?
Yeah, absolutely. So the research process was really important to me. Being able to take apart and doing specific research, and finding specific tools.
Mm-hmm.
One tool in specific was the DSM. Now that is the overall main psychology textbook that most journalists, psychology majors use. Now that was something really important to me, being able to see that is the ideal scholarly source, that is what the scholars use.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to see that and then basing my information off of that truly scholarly source and being able to add on to that was my research process. I did almost everything surrounded around the DSM because I wanted to be really scholarly, really academic, and I wanted to make sure all of my information was really important and accurate. And my main takeaway, since what I plan on going to is psychology, even though I don't plan on doing something mental health or clinical related, I'm still going to take the classes, of course. Those are still prerequisites to having a psychology degree. So I think it's really important that I had that base foundation, and I've had this desire over the past 4 years to learn about psychology, which means I have so much base information inside my brain. I just have so much information that I can go into college and have all of that to use as a foundation, especially since I'm going into sophomore level classes. I want to make sure I have that foundation solidified, and that senior research essay was able to help me with that.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, and speaking of psychology in the brain, if you're able to make connections between learning, that helps you deepen your learning more and you remember it for a longer time.
Mhm.
So you're not going to be learning it for the first time, you're going to be making connections.
Yes.
So, cool.
Ella, what did you learn about yourself over your 4 years of high school?
Yeah, so when I first came to Compass, that was my freshman year. I went to a public middle school. Don't highly recommend. Did not really set me up for success. I was a good student, and I had the desire and the passion to learn. I just didn't know the study techniques or how to put that into action because the teachers there didn't teach that. So by coming to Compass, I really learned grit, determination, these techniques and these skills I need to learn to earn the 4s. And even though the 4s aren't everything, they're still, you know, important to the grade. But on top of that, I also learned how to take those study techniques and transfer them over to different parts of my life, whether that's work, college, workforce, anything like that. I've been able to take those tools and build on them.
I have a question.
Okay.
So it sounds like you said starting in your freshman year, you kind of knew that you had this passion for psychology. What do you recommend for students that don't have a passion for something, they don't know what they want to do? How can
Yeah.
they see beyond?
Absolutely. What really, really helped me was Mrs. Nagy's apprenticeship class. And even though she's not here, I know we still have that apprenticeship course. So I would really strongly recommend, which was part of her curriculum, was taking self-assessments. Even though they sound goofy, they're really, really important. And had, like Lily had shown in her presentation, she had taken some of those self-assessments which helped with her teaching. So those are so pivotal to really understanding yourself. And if you take a test and you're like, oh, that doesn't really fit me, it doesn't fit you. But if you see something on there and you're like, I actually do have an interest for that, or I could, follow it, lead it. Maybe that's your apprenticeship that you plan on doing that next year. It's always really important to connect those factors and really like truly learn about yourself.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions we have time for. Thank you, Ella.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes. No way she just went and I had to go after her.
And you're right. Wonderful.
Did you test this with
Talking about your cat.
All right, it is time, and I believe the room is ready, so Kiki, you can begin.
My name is Kiki Collins, and this is my senior project presentation. So first, I'm just going to go over my table of contents, everything that I'm going to be talking about in this presentation. First, I'm going to talk about history under the ideal of mastery, and then I'm going to talk about growth mindset with the ideal of making connections, and then finally, I'm going to be talking about apprenticeship with the overall ideal of SOA. So to first start, I want to talk about my extended metaphor. I'm doing my extended metaphor on a book and the different parts of a book. So the first thing is the characters. This will connect to my history artifacts, and the characters provide like different perspectives throughout the book. And later on, we'll talk about why that connects to my history. And then the plot, this is like when you're going through like the ups and downs, like the roller coaster of the book, and you're just feeling like all the different emotions of everybody else while you're reading it. And then finally the ending, like when you finish a book, you get closure, you see how everything connects together, and it's just like a really good way to like close the book and like finish off. So first standard, again, under the ideal of mastery. First, this is my ISM presentation. We did this in 10th grade, and in 10th grade we choose an ISM, so I focused on feminism and individualism, and I focused on the movie Legally Blonde, and I talked about how feminism and individualism are both in that movie. And then in this, you can see that I had two questions on there, but the second one says, does individualism cause people to come into conflict with each other? I feel like this question can be more of just like your yes or no type of answer, and it doesn't really allow people to converse with each other. And then we also only called on like one table for this, so we only really got one answer from one group of people rather than multiple people. And then the second artifact is my giver presentation. This was in 11th grade, and I did it for chapters 11 through 13. And I have a piece of evidence and then 3 different questions connected to it. And so the second question in there, it says, when Jonas first found out that he would experience pain as the receiver, he was afraid. Why do you think that he's convincing the giver to now show him pain? So I feel like this question, we called on multiple people for this, for the answer. And this allowed people to have a lot more like conversation, and this presentation allowed us to teach the class. We weren't just presenting our information, we taught the class. And we were having conversations with them, and we were teaching them about the ways that we saw the presentation. And then also, I know that the slide is like more crowded than the last one, but it's also all relevant information. That's one of the biggest main things I've been taught for presentations is only put relevant information on the slides. Even though this one's full, it is all relevant information that's needed for the questions. And then also for this slide, for the presentation, obviously you can't see it, but I learned how to do transitions for it because that was part of the requirements. And so this second presentation really helped me for like future presentations, like transitions and having relevant information and in-depth questions. And so then for my history reflection, it's under the idea of mastery, and I mastered my presentation skills. Like now I'm more comfortable in front of like an audience since the presentation was for 45 minutes. And it wasn't just like a quick like 5-minute presentation like my one in 10th grade. And then also allowed success for future presentations. So this one, for example, I have the transitions in here, and so I learned that last year, and it's become a lot easier for me to be able to build my presentation. And then I'm more comfortable in front of the audience. Again, it was for 45 minutes, and I really had to interact with the audience as if I was a teacher. That's what Mr. Jacobs wanted for us. And so I was able to go around and ask different individuals different questions, and it just taught me how to be comfortable with asking those questions and waiting for answers. And then my extended metaphor. So this connects to the characters of a book, because both of these presentations obviously had like different perspectives or different roles or requirements, but it also gave me a different perspective on what a presentation should look like. So my one in 10th grade had me I just had the perspective of, oh, this is just a presentation, I'm just presenting my information workbook and then I'm done. But for last year, it was more of a, oh, let me teach my audience and let me have them understand what I'm trying to say. So my second standard is for growth mindset under the ideal of making connections. So this is a picture of Zoe and I, and it was our 2022 HOSA research poster. And as you can see right here, that is like the only interactive or like creative part of the poster, and we didn't realize that one of the main things the judges were looking for was creativity and color on the poster. So we didn't make it past the first round, which was just the view of the poster. We didn't make it past that first round at all. And we realized that if we wanted to, we needed to make it more interactive for the judges and the viewers. And we needed to add more color. And so this is my poster from 2024. We did make it past the first round, and then I believe out of 32 posters, we placed 9th. And this is like, I know it's small and it kind of looks weird, but it's just like more interactive and more colorful for the judges to see, and it's like a design of the bottom for any viewers or judges that want to come by and see what the presentation is about. It has a diagram of the brain, and then it labels different parts of the brain. And then for my growth mindset reflection, it connects to making connections. So it connects to me like outside of school because I found a new career field that I'm interested in. I'm not interested in neurosurgery, but I am interested in the medical field now. After joining HOSA and being in HOSA for 3 years, I realized that the medical field is something I'm interested in. I always thought I wasn't going to be interested in it because I'm not one for science at all. I really don't like science at all. But after joining HOSA and going to state so many times, I realized just how enjoyable it could be. And then I found meaning in hard work. So after my first year doing that research poster, I realized that I needed to work hard, and by working hard, I was able to do a better poster, and I was able to get further, and that's what gave me the sense of accomplishment and achievement. And then again, I found a new interest in my work. So even though I wasn't interested in the medical before, I realized that I should always keep my options open, because at first I was really blocked off to the medical field. I was like, I do not want to go into any type of science in my college career. And so I realized that I need to just keep my options open when I'm thinking about my future and my future careers. And then extended metaphor. This connects to the plot of like a book, because again, like the disappointment, the sadness, and then you also get those happy and proud moments. So at the beginning, Zoe and I were really upset that we didn't make it past that first round. But in 2024, even though I didn't do my poster with her, I did it with my friend Kennedy, and we were proud of ourselves for getting 9th place out of 32, since that is a very competitive event, and there's a lot of people that compete in that event. It's a really good thing that we got 9th place. So going on to my last standard, it's apprenticeship under the ideal of so what. So my first artifact is my informational interview. This was in 10th grade for our apprenticeship, and so I had to write about a certain career and I did it under accounting, and I had to think about whether or not accounting would be good for me in the long run as a career. So to zoom in on this little box, it was talking about is it a match. So I was writing here about whether or not I thought the career would be a good match for me in my future. So right here I said that I think that the idea of this job focuses on math and individual work, and then working individually, and it seems like a really great fit. I really like working at my own pace, and I don't like worrying about other people's work. I like just relying on myself. And then I also really enjoy math, and so I never thought of having that as like a future career, because I thought that it would be really boring. But after doing this interview, I found out that it was actually not as boring as it may seem, and there was a lot more behind it. And then my second artifact is my final reflection newsletter. This was after the 40 hours of the apprenticeship, and I did as with an AP AR manager named Deanna Collins. And so for my apprenticeship, I was able to count money, and I was able to help her with the payments for the employees of the building. And right here, I write about again about whether or not I think I would like the career. And so I didn't like the structure of it. It was really repetitive, and I do like to have some varying work, but every day we would do the same things over and over. And yeah, it got you comfortable with the career, but it wasn't really interesting at all. You just did the same thing over and over. And when I want to have a career, I want something where I can vary my work so that every day is like interesting. It's not all just the same. So my apprenticeship reflection. So it focused on the so what. So I realized that in order to find a career that you actually like, you need to research a lot, and you need to have knowledge on the career itself. So I had research both with the interview and the apprenticeship. I worked hands-on at the apprenticeship, so that was more of my research, while for the interview, I got in-person knowledge from the person that was the accountant, and it was really good to see just how interactive each career was and what they actually did. And then it connects to my life by giving me a career choice. Even though I am going into the medical field here in the next year, this is also still a career that I might be interested in if that doesn't work out. And then I realized my likes and dislikes in career. Again, I really like working alone and having my own pace, and then I really don't like having repetitive work. That's just not what I like. And then for my extended metaphor, this connects to the ending. So even though this wasn't at the very end of my high school career, I did find out what I wanted to do past that. And so it kind of helped me tie my high school career together, only for the fact that I knew what I wanted to do past that, and I knew what I wanted to do at the end of my high school career, and I wasn't so lost anymore. So the apprenticeship really helps me with that, and also HOSA. So then my big so what. I have one big takeaway for my entire high school career, and it's failure is inevitable. No matter what you do, you're always going to fail. And I failed a lot through high school. Even though I've had A's through pretty much my entire high school career, I did struggle on a lot of my assignments because time management, or I was just lazy and I didn't want to do it, or it was just too difficult and I wasn't asking questions. I did fail, but then I realized what I needed to do better, and I did do better, and that's what allowed me to keep my grades up. And then also going back to the HOSA poster board, I did fail the first time, but after you keep trying, you will get better. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiki. We're going to finish up notes and then ask you questions. question. I asked this a few times yesterday and like the question. So what is one way in which you feel like your character has struggled throughout high school, and in what way have you been able to like notice that or improve it?
Well, I definitely, like I said, I get really lazy with my schoolwork sometimes. Like, I definitely try to keep up on it, but now, especially right now, we're at the end of the senior year, and I've had quite a few missing assignments. I do eventually get them all in, but I do have a lot of late assignments. And I realized that, like, at the beginning, like my freshman year, I was more like, okay, let's get this in early type of thing. And so I realized that even though I'm tired, I still need to keep up on my work. And so I do realize that I do slack on that right now. But I do know that for like college, it's going to be a new environment, a new school. I'm going to be really excited about the career I'm going into. So I know that my character will be able to just like jump back up to being able to getting my assignments in on time. And I'm really trying, like we only have a few assignments left that I have to turn in, but I really am trying to get those in either before the deadline, like way before the deadline, or the day of, but I'm really trying to just get that done.
Finish strong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a life lesson. Even when you're tired and exhausted and not motivated, you still gotta
Yeah.
do stuff,
Yeah.
for sure. That's a big life lesson. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so you said that you're going into the medical field.
Yes.
What are you going to do?
I'm going into sports medicine, but so I'm going to University of Arizona. So it's not, they don't have a specific sports medicine like degree. So I'm doing just like sports med classes or pre-med classes in order to get that feeling for it. So if that doesn't work out, I might go into physical therapy also.
My question for you is relating back to kind of what you just answered, but when you talked about your time management skills, did anything specific help you with that? Do you think that overall, from freshman year to now, you feel like you've grown? I mean, aside from maybe like right this second you're slacking off a little, but what has changed from then to now?
Yeah, I definitely, especially for like essays, I actually really enjoy writing essays, especially for like informational and like getting like evidence and stuff. So when I enjoy essays more, I tend to do them a lot sooner. But I've had essays like creative writing, and I usually push that off till the last day. But I definitely, for like this year, I definitely work to do those sooner because I realized that I need to do those sooner, because if I keep pushing it off, I probably won't turn it in because I just don't enjoy it like at all. So I've worked to do things that I don't like sooner. I've learned to start that sooner, and then for things that I enjoy more, I can push it off for maybe just like a day longer, because I know that I'm actually going to be interested when I'm writing it or when I'm doing the assignment. I do it a lot faster than the one that I don't like.
Yeah, thank you. Cool. Thank you, Kiki.
I don't want that one to be I know it's different. I'm confident. I just keep involved. You got it.
I didn't even know. Did you fail?
I failed, be honest.
You failed?
Yeah. I started over my words thrice.
Oh no.
Is it about perfection, Bella?
Yes.
You know that's not the
I do not have a growth
answer.
mindset. That is why I did not quit myself.
You literally started
Girl
your
with my
speech
favorite
and I
name
want to
out
show
of
you
all the
perfection.
That's a lot of
Great.
names of yours.
Okay, so you're gonna begin. Are students ready? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. When you're ready, we're ready for you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Sabian Soria, and this is my senior presentation. Today I will be talking about 3 of the 10 standards for my senior portfolio, as well as my overall high school experience, and connecting it to the process of learning and learning. So, for my table of contents, the first standard I'll talk about is history with the ideal of making connections. And then I'll talk about math with the ideal of mastery, and then elective with the ideal of achievement, and finally, my so what. So going into my first standard, history with the ideal of making connections. My first artifact for this standard is my ISM project that I did my sophomore year in world history. The goal of this assignment was to find isms and an element of pop culture, make a presentation on it, and share it with the class. Isms are a distinct practice or like system or ideology. So for example, I did mine on the Titanic, and one of the isms that I found was materialism. So for each of the ism slides that I did, I had the ism with a definition, and then below I listed examples where it could be seen in the movie. And then I had pictures that correlated to those examples. And then for my second artifact, I had my North American Indian teaching presentation, which I did my junior year in my American government class. And the goal of this presentation was to give us insight on how much work goes into creating lesson plans and just teaching overall. And this was a group presentation on a tribe of our choice, so we decided to do ours on the Shoshone Indians. And we had to do it in the 3 C's format, which was content, context, connection. And here I have the content slide highlighted. So for this slide, we had to include a quote that explained the issue that we were talking about. So for this one, we were explaining how the Louisiana Purchase affected the Shoshone Indians. And then we had questions over to the side that helped analyze the quote. We would ask these questions to the class, give them time to dialogue in their small groups, and then we would come together for a class discussion. And this is exactly what we were graded on. We were graded on our ability to make questions that were challenging, thought-provoking, and open-ended, causing students to think deeply about subject matter. So essentially, we were graded on our ability to help, to enable the students to synergize. And I chose making connections for the ideal to support this, because in the first artifact, I exemplified my abilities to make connections alone. And from that presentation, I made the connection that I can use my skills and the things that I've learned to help others make significant and meaningful connections, which I exemplified in my second artifact since it was a teaching presentation. And this connects to my metaphor of the process of learning guitar, because when you're learning guitar, you have to start with the basics. You have to create a foundation for your learning. You have to find the patterns and the various elements of the guitar, such as the chords and the fingerings and the playing styles. And by making those connections, I was able to make music instead of just playing random sounds. So that leads into my second standard, which is math with the ideal of mastery. The first artifact I have for this standard is my Unit 1 test that I took my senior year in my Math and Modern Society class. And during this test, we were in our statistics unit, and the section shown focuses on reporting standard 7, which is sampling, frequency distributions, graphs, and measures of center. And in this reporting standard, I got a 3.5 due to a simple mistake I made on question 3. And just going into that a bit further, this question asked us to decide which measure of center was the most representative of the data. And I said that it was mean because it accounts for the outlier. However, that would have skewed the data, so the correct answer would have been median. For my second artifact, I have my Unit 2 test that I took also during my senior year in my Math and Modern Society class. However, during this test, we were in our personal finance unit, and the section being shown is a spiral section. Spiral sections are included on tests to include they include information from previous units to ensure that we still remember the information that we were taught, and to give us the opportunity to improve our grade in the event that we did poorly on previous tests. So I chose to highlight the same standard, and this time I got 4 because I was able to go back and fix my mistake. And I would like to specifically highlight question 10 because it's the same general concept as question 3 from the previous test. We were asked to determine which measure of center was most representative of the data. This time I knew that it was mean because I knew that mode skewed the data. So I chose mastery as my ideal to support these artifacts, because even though I made a mistake on the first test, I was able to identify the problem and then fix it. Not only does this show my mastery in the reporting standard, but also my ability to identify a problem and then take the necessary steps to fix it. And this connects to my metaphor of learning guitar, because throughout my process of learning guitar, when I first started playing guitar, I made lots and lots of mistakes. It just felt like that's all I did was make mistakes. And once I finally applied myself and took the time to analyze the mistakes I was making, I was able to understand what I was doing wrong. And then I was able to fix those mistakes and reach the level of mastery that I'm at now. So I learned the importance of slowing down, and so that I could fully understand the material that I was learning. So that leads to my third and final standard of elective with the ideal of achievement. My first artifact is my 1-rep max sheet from my weightlifting, strengthening, and conditioning class that I took my sophomore year. This class just taught us the basics of weightlifting, and at the end of the year we were tested on 5 primary lifts that we had been learning throughout the course. And so we were tested on our ability to do the lift as well as how much weight we lifted. And the rubric shows the percent of our body weight that was tested on, and these boxes here show where I scored in each of those different standards for each of the different lifts. And then further going into how much weight I lifted, I would specifically like to focus on my deadlift, because I only lifted 135 at the end of the year, which even though I got a 4, I wasn't satisfied because it was only 1.08% of my body weight, and it wasn't, even though it did get me a 4, it wasn't a very satisfactory score for me. So moving on to my second artifact, which is my 1-rep max sheet from my advanced weightlifting class that I took my junior year. This is the same general concept, except this class is a bit more rigorous and the standards are a bit higher because it's the advanced section of the weightlifting courses. And here I have the rubric highlighted and I show where I scored in each of these standards. I still received a grade of proficiency in each of these lifts because I was able to lift the proper amount of weight, and also I knew the mechanics of the lift, so I was able to do them properly. And then focusing in again on my deadlift, I did 155 this time, which was 1.19% of my body weight. And even though I didn't get a score of a 4, I was more satisfied with that number than I was for the previous year, because deadlift has always been a struggle lift of mine. So I chose to connect this to the ideal of achievement because, as I said previously, deadlift has always been one of my struggle lifts, and I don't know why. I just can't pick up the weight off the floor, and it's just very difficult for me. And so it was a huge accomplishment for me when I was finally able to get the 155 up, because I tried it several times before and I wasn't able to do it. And so when I finally did it, I was so proud of myself. And that just taught me that through perseverance, I'm able to reach the goals that I've made for myself. And this connects to the process of learning guitar, because when I was learning guitar, I neglected bar chords because they were very difficult to do, and I didn't really understand how to do them. However, once I really buckled down and focused in on what I was trying to achieve, I was able to persevere through that challenge, and I was able to master them, and now I can play them with ease. So what? Why does this all matter? Putting it all together, and how does this all connect? So for making connections, I had to connect all the things that I was learning, and I had to build a solid foundation for myself. It's important to build a foundation in anything that you're learning, because if you don't have that foundation, it makes it more difficult to move forward in the event that you do make a mistake. Because when you have that foundation, you have something to fall back on, and it makes it easier to move forward. Which then leads to mastery, because the process of reaching that level of mastery, in the process of reaching the level of mastery, you will make mistakes, because learning is not a linear process and mistakes are always going to be made. However, through Consistency, dedication, and practice, those mistakes will lessen and they will become more avoidable. And since repetition is key, just practicing over and over again will help you achieve that level of mastery. And then with mastery comes a sense of achievement. And so once you've reached that level of mastery, you can feel good about like seeing your hard work pay off and seeing the effort that you put in is actually worthwhile. Again, learning is not a linear process, which I have demonstrated through my 3 standards and the process of
So what are you planning on going into?
I'm planning on going into nursing. I'm starting at BSU in the fall, and I hope to get my degree in nursing so that eventually I can be an RN or maybe anesthesiologist. I don't know how much schooling I want to go through, so I don't know about the whole anesthesiologist thing because that's a lot of schooling. But yeah, which I don't have. So yeah, nursing.
Yeah, anesthesiologists make good money. Okay, my question would be, what do you think is a life lesson that you've learned by being at Compass that maybe you wouldn't have gotten at another school?
Definitely growth mindset, because I've been here since kindergarten, so I have had lots of time to really solidify that and learn that life lesson. I have failed a lot and I've learned a lot throughout my high school career, and it's definitely been important for me to know that just you can do it, like if you put your mind to it, and like being positive about your failures and taking like constructive criticism is like always the best way to go, because like even though you don't want to admit that you failed sometimes, like you know, you just have to accept that and then just
I feel you.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
I have a question. You didn't mention anything about your apprenticeship. What did you do, and did that help you with pursuing your, hopefully, nursing or maybe anesthesiology?
So I kind of didn't really take my apprenticeship seriously. I did my apprenticeship at a hair salon, and I learned that that is not for me at all. I do not want to go into cosmetology. It is very boring to me. And yeah, I guess that kind of helped me narrow down like what I want to do, because I had no idea that I wanted to go into nursing until this year. I always kind of thought that I wanted to maybe be a teacher, but I kind of stayed away from that. But my apprenticeship didn't really help me a lot. I mean, it taught me good skills like time management and stuff and such, which will help me in my career field. But yeah, as for the actual material, I didn't really take it seriously.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ian. That was the last one. She should be coming back for another master's. But
Yeah, so I've got
okay, because this is all covering you and you have a class and so
Exactly.
changed it. Okay, so. Oh, she is sick. Yay, just on time, just on time. Thank you. That's it. That's it. It was in the I forgot It was crazy.
the kids, so that they have feedback
Yeah.
for their senior
And we were like, okay, bye.
My parents were here as soon as they finished like,
Oh my gosh.
and I told my mom, I'm like, I actually, the details are not that nice to go. And I decided last night, I was like, actually, mom, I think I'm gonna need them.
It's cute that you think you can tell them not to come.
They were like, I was like, mom, this is too stressful.
I get it. It's hard for me, and I do it every year.
So I apologize.
Yes. I feel like more work because you do more over so you can teach them and go back to them. What, I don't want that to be more work either, so let me know if you want to do that.
I'm trying.
Okay. I'll let you know when you can begin.
Okay.
No, when you're ready, you can begin.
Okay, so, fun fact, my name is Noah Smith, and this is going to be my senior project. The overarching metaphor is going to be building a house. So, jumping to the first standard, growth mindset. It's going to fulfill the ideal of so what? So, this is going to be my integrated math test from Integrated Math 3, taught by a spectacular teacher, Mrs. Greg. And this is, so we're going to go over RS3, which is graphing rational functions. So we're pretty much given a function, and off of that function, we have to create a graph, okay? So I actually had no idea what I was doing here. Yeah, so I just remembered like what it was supposed to look like, and so I made a graph that looked like that. And so because I had no idea what I was doing, I got a 1. And I even pointed out here in a little comment, I said, flat out forgot how to do this, need to study it for next time, okay? So some takeaways from this. So I did identify the problem. I was like, I did not know what I was doing, okay? And I approached it with the appropriate mindset. I wasn't like, oh, snap, that's it. I was like, yeah, gotta study that, like, let's go. And then that was my game plan, was I presented a solution of studying, okay? Big idea right there. And so this is the test directly following that. So same standard, RS3, graphing rational functions, but this time, even though it looks pretty similar to what I had before, this time I actually knew what I was doing. So I graphed it right. And yeah, I got 4. Let's go. Like, that's dramatic improvement, 1 to 4. And another reflection. So takeaways from this. So I learned from my mistake. This time I did study the assigned, the thing I failed last time. So that's good. And then I learned the lesson that success comes through hard work and perseverance. Yeah, and I learned the appropriate way to deal with failure. So that's a big thing for the so what, like overall in my life. Like you gotta know how to deal with failure because you're gonna fail, and so you have to know how to deal with it. And so this is gonna connect my metaphor, which is foundation. Because if building a house, you need a foundation to base all your stuff upon. Because if you have a bad foundation, unfortunately the house probably won't survive. And so, and this is similar to my math class and growth mindset, where I learned the way to deal with failure. Because you need that to know how to deal with failure to base the rest of your education and life upon. So, my second standard is going to be history. And it's going to fulfill the ideal of making connections. There's going to be a lot of connections here. So, the first artifact is my Crusader meme project. Boom. And in this, we have to have an image and text and put those together to make a meme. There's a little connection right there. And this is my meme. I have Thanos, put a little Crusader helmet on him, and I was like, and then I put the text, and they call what we did genocide. And so right here, I'm connecting the Crusades to what Thanos did when he killed half the people on the planet. And yeah, so fun fact, I wasn't alive in the 1100s, So I didn't directly experience the Crusades. And so right here, I can modernize it and bring it into something that actually affects, like, that I have experienced, which is watching the movie of Infinity War. And so takeaways from this. First of all, I was able to utilize a connection between an image and text, making them mean. Second of all, it connects to pop culture, which is kind of epic. It's bringing history class and connecting it to something actually that we might find interesting. Not that the Crusades weren't interesting, they definitely were. And then I was able to modernize a historical event, which was epic. So for my second artifact, Giver teaching presentation. This was an assignment I did in 11th grade, Mr. Jacobs' class, where we had to read a couple of chapters in a book and then present that to a class using a 3-part presentation: context, content, and connection. Big one there, connection. That's what we're doing here, making connections. So this is a slide that I had, and one specific question I asked was, why is lying so dangerous? It's the structure of society, especially where the people believe the government can't do anything wrong. Okay? And so that connects themes in the book and that into your own life, politics, like government. And so it helps you bring the book into your life. Lessons in the book, at least. So, takeaways from this and why it connects to making connections. I was able to lead the class in making connections, okay? This is moving from not just me being able to do connections to teaching it, which is moving from a level 1 to a 4, okay? Because if you're teaching it, then that's not just you knowing it anymore. And then second of all, it taught me to look for connections in everything, okay? Because I read a book. I'm like, that's crazy. But then you could also use lessons from that book, put it into your life. Like, you can actually learn stuff from random stuff like that. It's crazy. And then I was also making philosophical, political, and real life connections. All good things. Okay, so another big connection here. How does it connect to my metaphor? So this is how, the way I say connected was framing a house. Framing a house is when you're starting to see the structure of the house form. You're starting to see, like, it actually look like a house. It's not just like some random cement block anymore. It's actually like it's like a wood frame. It's epic. And so, and just like in education, when you're making connections, you're putting everything together, okay? That's when your worldview starts to come. Like, you're actually becoming an actual person. Like, you're like, oh, okay, something's actually coming up here. So moving into my next standard, it's gonna be my elective. The ideal fulfilled is gonna be mastery. And so in 9th grade, I took weightlifting, epic class. I love lifting heavy stuff. And so in this class, we had to, at the beginning of the month, we made a cycle sheet. And that cycle sheet, it outlined pretty much all the exercises we were gonna do that day for an entire month. So it switched up, but you made one little sheet for each day, and it would tell you what lifts you were doing, what weight. And right here, we have primary exercises, okay? Like front squat. The primary exercises were back squat, front squat, deadlift, bench press, push press, okay? And of that, I had front squat as the main one on this day, and I paired it with secondary exercises, one of which was dumbbell lateral raises. And fun fact, squats, such as front squat, and lateral raises, they don't actually hit the same muscle groups. Like, it's shoulders and legs. So that was an interesting thing I did here, as well as not having that many lifts. So moving, let's see, takeaways from this. I presented an entry-level knowledge of the subject. I figured out what lifts were. I put them on a cycle sheet. I could work out. Epic. Like, I'm a functioning human being. And then second, it wasn't well organized, okay? The muscle groups were not put together in a way that would most functionally be a good workout. And then I was able to pass this assignment. I got a 4. So this was the required, if not above required, standards. So that's epic. And then my psycho log from 11th grade. So I retook the class in 11th grade, not because I failed it, because friends of mine were taking it, and I really like weightlifting, so I just retook it. But this time, you can see a lot more is going on. Like, I have 8 lifts compared to the previous 4, so I use my time more productively. That's always a pro. And I didn't waste it. Like, I did talk a lot in 9th grade, okay? I was yapping. And then this time, I have exercises like bench press, and which hits chest, and I paired it with other exercises such as flies, which also hit chest. So we fixed that problem too. So, and that's why this shows mastery. And so I presented a mastery level of knowledge because I was pairing exercises that actually should go together. And then I organized it pretty well too. Same thing, same idea. And then I also achieved a good grade. So I went above and beyond the normal standard to get, like, I got 4 in the last one, did even better this time, still got 4. So that's like mastery. And my metaphor connection for this. So this is going to connect to passing inspection, okay? Because you can when building a house, you have to pass inspection for the house to go on the market. And this includes things like heating, ventilation, air conditioning, wiring, electrical, plumbing. All those things are critical for the overall house to go on the market, and they have to be good enough quality to get passed, okay? But that quality can still be low, and you can still pass. And so, but in 20 years time, that's gonna give out. But if you do the high quality work, it can last longer. But both pass inspection. Just like my first cycle sheet was able to pass inspection, like it got a good grade, even though it wasn't the best. And then but my second one was way better, and it also passed. But which one am I gonna learn more from? Like, which one is gonna more deeply impact me? The second one that I paired stuff that should go together. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're probably going to finish up notes for a minute, and then we'll ask you a question in a second. My question is, what is a way that you feel like Compass has been able to prepare you for your future in specifically a soft skill or like a personality or character trait? Not like, I'm ready with calculus information.
Personality or character trait? Okay, so fun fact, I'm a little prideful sometimes, okay?
Okay.
And so normally I can just, because I don't find school that difficult, so I can just turn in like normal work. Like you saw on my cycle sheet, I just turned in like the pretty much the lowest quality thing, and it still passes, okay? I'm like, oh, epic. But sometimes I do get assignments that I can't do that on. And for example, it's big projects like my senior research essay. And so that kind of humbles me, okay? It brings me to realization that I can't just do, I actually have to put like effort in sometimes, like most of the time like I should be. And so yeah, it taught me to be a little more humble in my life.
Good, it's a good lesson.
So then what are your plans? What are you going to use this for?
Okay, so I want to go into drafting. That's one of the reasons I did building a house as my metaphor. And so, yeah, so that uses math, a lot of other stuff like communication, all stuff that I learned in high school that I have to like bring it in. To
So I want senior Noah to draft my house, not freshman Noah.
Yeah,
Is that what I'm
probably.
Okay. Actually, could I get senior college Noah? Are we gonna keep
Yeah.
honing in?
Noah in 4 years, Noah. We ready.
And then now I forgot my question.
Too busy
Well, I was
writing.
curious about your research paper.
Yes.
What did you do for your research paper?
So I did on overpopulation and ways to deal with that. So for that, my solution was pretty much I can't. Was direct effects weren't doing anything, so you have to affect the external stimuli, such as implementing urban growth boundaries, which are political. Like governments would do these around cities and be like, you can only grow this far, okay? And if that's like an external stimuli, that's not something directly being told like the people, it's all corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is in effect, the buildings and like things there will go farther up than out and be more productive in those, which is also connecting like, because I was like building a house, so I wanted to see how that would affect me, overpopulation would affect me if I went into that field.
Thank you. Unlike, so all of the West is not built that way. We should undo all of the West.
Literally, Control Z.
Exactly, definitely. Okay, thank you so much, Noah.
No problem.
Try the it's already on artifact 2, so you gotta get back to the first line anyway. And then you're gonna go in about 1 minute-ish, but you can actually wait another minute because after this. Yes, I know. I realize there's little things like that that I have to adjust, but thank you for doing that.
Hi.
Okay.
So my name is Esther Matthews, and this is my senior project. My metaphors that I'm going to do are sheep. And so my first standard I'm going to do is math under the ideal of under the ideal of growth, and my second standard is technology under the standard of mastery, and my third is my elective, which is forensics over the standard of so what. Here is my first standard of math under growth. My first artifact was tangent, cosine, and sine that I did in integrated math 3 with Miss Gregg. And I want to go back to freshman year, actually, where I took BYU math online. And this kind of led into what I'm going to talk about today, which is not showing my work. With this, I didn't really understand what I was supposed to do in BYU math. I totally didn't know that I was supposed to do SOHCAHTOA, which is sine over hypotenuse, cosine over hypotenuse, and tangent over hypotenuse. And it shows in this artifact, because on the left side, you can definitely see that I did not put any of those SOHCAHTOA words anywhere in that standard. And my time management was definitely not there, as I turned most of my assignments from my sophomore year in late or missing. Next is my artifact 2, which is my PEMDAS homework and my order of operations. Here you can see that I showed every single one of my steps in my homework, and I definitely knew what to do in this homework assignment. And this is kind of like a sheep, because in growth you need to understand how to show your work, and I went from a 2 to a 4 in from freshman to senior year. And this connects to my metaphor, because during a sheep's life, the youngest part of its life, it needs all the basic needs to grow and to survive, to learn how to survive. And this is kind of like how to ask questions. I wasn't really asking questions to get a deeper understanding of what I needed to do. And I was learning new things all the time during my freshman year to my senior year about math and how to ask questions and how to get my basic needs from going from a 2 to a 4. Next artifact is technology under the ideal of mastery. Artifact 1 was my innovator group presentation that I did with Tana and Ella. So first I want to point out that I did the transitions for this one all the same, and so it looked really good on my presentation, and it wasn't distracting the judges or the judges from the rest of my presentation. And there again, as you can see, they're all the same, and yeah. Next, I want to point out my uses of bullet points. In this one, you can see that it's only one basically line of work, as it's very easy to read, and it gets straight to the point of what I was trying to say during this presentation. And this presentation was about innovators and what they did to what they basically invented. Or like this one says, she was the first American to dance in the Paris Opera Ballet. So it was just showing how she was the first one to innovate something like that, and she was the first one to dance, basically. My second artifact was my American music presentation, and with this one, I had different transitions into the slides, but it still looked good on the final product. And this was alone this time, and for my bullet points here, you can see that it's still one-liners, but it's easy to read, and it shows where she lived and how she died and all of her birth stuff. And so I showed mastery by getting all 4s on these projects, and by using points to help throughout this project and presentation, and by using the correct animations that I was supposed to use. And I got all 4s throughout this whole technology class that I was pretty proud of. And for my metaphor, this will be the middle of the sheep's life, which is basically how you mastered how to problem solve, how to think on your feet. And how this connects was I mastered how to use points and transitions throughout the projects. And I learned how to master efficiency and time management, and definitely not being nervous for presentations like these. And my third standard is my elective, which I chose forensics for, and this is under the ideal of so what. And this first artifact I will talk about is my forensics book presentation, and it was titled Lady Killers, and it was basically it went throughout time finding all the ladies who had done like poisonings, stabbings, killings, all that stuff. And I focused on Nancy Hazel, and it says, it all started when Nancy was young. Her father was never nice to her and her mother. Then her father divorced her mother, and this was where she got her hatred of males. And so basically she would only poison males, and she made names up for the poisonings and all this stuff. But what I wanted to focus on was, this is what I want to do for my future. Not the poisonings part, but the finding out what people have done and how they did it, and basically finding out how they did it. And so my artifact 2 would be the carbon monoxide group presentation that I did with Noah back there, and Cole. And I want to focus on this part, which says exposure to or surroundings carbon monoxide can lead to dementia, memory loss, and irritability, a severe loss of coordination, slurred speech, and severe depression. And with this, this was also something I was really interested in for my future career, because you can find out the symptoms of what essentially happened to the person with autopsies and testings and all of that. And this is just really what I want to do for my future career and my so what part. The connections are that it really challenged my brain to think about this type of stuff like no other class has. It really made me put in the effort that no other class has provided for me. And also, it's, as I've spoken of already, I found out that I want to do something in forensics, most likely a crime scene investigator, because they do this type of stuff with the carbon monoxide and figuring out what happened to the people and stuff like that. And for my metaphor, this challenged myself to go above and beyond all of to think above and beyond to where I want to go in the future and for my future career. And it also made me learn how to work in groups and how to problem solve and think on my feet, where you will most likely have to do that in a crime scene because the person might actually still be there. And this connects to my metaphor as a sheep, because when they get older, they have finally mastered what they have in life, and they have learned how to think on their feet with dangers such as wolves or even dogs and things like that. And yeah, it really just challenged me to think about my future and what I have done. Thank you for, never mind. Sorry about that. My high school lessons, first I learned how to ask questions, and this is very important for learning, as you need to ask questions in order to figure out what you're doing. As with the first standard, I didn't ask questions, as I've already spoken of. And for the second one, I learned how to advocate for myself and really push for the things that I wanted to learn. And for the third standard, or for the third lesson, I learned how to have a growth mindset. And that is really important so that you can grow throughout your high school career, and instead of just saying, I can't do this, I give up, all that stuff. Now, thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. For the sake of time, we're just going to ask 2 questions. And my question would be kind of twofold. What is one way that you think your character has improved in your time in high school? And what is a goal of how to continue improving your character after you graduate?
I definitely think one issue is my time management.
Mhm.
Still a little bit, I need to work on that. And a goal for working on that would probably be to put a little bit more effort into my work, as you have probably seen that I need to do that more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so coming up with like strategies to do that,
Yeah,
realizing motivation
strategies.
isn't really the thing to rely on, or other strategies of some kind.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, yeah, that sounds valuable. And then just questions, so whoever's ready.
What do you see, what's your trajectory now from graduating high school to become the crime scene investigator? What's your next steps?
Yeah, I definitely want to go into like classes in college such as criminal justice, and that will definitely help in my trajectory towards getting that degree in crime scene investigations. And I definitely want to, before that, get a job in something surrounding that type of environment. And maybe even get a master's degree in that after.
And thanks, Esther. All right, seniors, good job. You can all head out. And if you haven't gotten like a donut, you can get yours now. Please don't get 2 donuts because there's not enough for more people. Yeah, of course. We have a break until 10:17. So I also I'm running away. Thank you so much. Will you
I will be back.
be coming back? Okay,
Yeah, I'm
bye.
coming back for the first one, and then we're going to switch.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, you have a break, so you've got time.
I know. She's like, I think I missed something. Girl, no, you do. No. What are you waiting for? Oh, Alfred? No, I'm not looking at you.
Oh, I don't even know which one I want. Text the remote thing for mine, because I was supposed to go, this is not working properly. Thank you.
Can you guys maybe talk in the hall? I'm still trying to write some, thank you.
More stamps. Yeah, I did. You didn't get one, didn't you? No. Good.
How was your
Wow. It was good.
I'm very glad. See, I forgot everything. I don't remember anything.
Yeah, same.
Your presentation to help you. I'll at least give you a rough outline.
So shocked.
No, I did like
Okay. I made like 10 extra.
Well, that was easy.
But I don't think I was counting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was gonna make a great.
How many is there? Can you count? See, I can't remember.
Oh, I said.
4, 5. I have the 5 I need.
Myself. Yeah, but what do you think? If I say like a lot, then you say I was going for an extended simile. Make everything cold. No, you just make everything up. It's a tough question. I'll say I was going for an extended simile. Cool. Why do you go to my computer?
Did count them correctly.
You didn't invite me.
Who invited you here?
That's my teachers.
My teacher.
He was like, I don't want.
Mrs. Hillside, get your bundle.
She's like, I don't need this. I got back down here.
Yeah, I do.
I know. The air conditioner turned on or something.
It's great. That's exactly what I said. I was like, it's warm in the morning and it was cold later. And that's it. I was shivering.
I literally just took this out and then I got back down.
I just always keep my
I have this.
Oh, thank you so much. Alright, Ethan, you're gonna start in just a bit. Can we shut the door, please? Thank you. Alright, test out that clicker, make sure it works for you, you know how to use it. Alright, if the judges are ready, you can begin.
Okay. My name is Ethan Adolfson, and my extended motor is publishing a book. My first standard is electives with the ideal of making connections. My first artifact is the signature assignment of international film and literature. In this assignment, we made connections between documentary and a film. In this case, I had a documentary based on stereotypes in film history, where men are depicted as being correct, threatening, serious, greedy, and manipulative, and it's shown in the film that I had to write about. My second artifact was my essay on eyewitness testimony, where I had to make connections between different sources and my own perspective. So eyewitness testimony shouldn't be used in court trials due to high amount of errors caused due to it. So this connected to making connections, because I made connections between different sources, between different ideas and people, and to myself, which ties into publishing a book where you're world building and you're starting how to structure the book and developing ways to actually create what you're actually going to do, and then making connections between different sources of help and organizing it. My second standard is math with the ideal of mastering. My first artifact is in my pre-calculus test number 5, where I got a 4 on pretty much everything, and I showed all my work, and I showed how my process and how to do it, and proved it. second artifact was my Calculus 1 signature assignment, which I took over the summer. It tested my skills I learned throughout the course, really. I had to use my knowledge and reasoning skills in order to prove it and how it actually worked. So this reflects my mastery of math, because I knew what I was doing and I showed my work and showed how I got there. I mastered the curriculum and I knew what I was doing, and I synthesized ideas in order to actually get my work done. This connects to actually making the book, where you're actually completed it and you have everything that you need to do in order to actually send it to the publishers. So at this step, you have everything you need and you have the world built, and you now have now you can actually send it to the publishers. My third standard is science, with the ideal of achievement. My first artifact is my biology unit final 1, which is on marathon runner, and we had to figure out how why the marathon runner collapsed using different information that we gathered throughout the unit. In this assignment, I received a 4, and I got everything I needed to do in order to actually achieve that result. The teacher said that she liked that I compared it to other data and how I had a lot of detail in it. My second artifact is my biology unit final 4. And again, I got received a 4 on this assignment. This was on the unit of sick evolution, the evolution of sick humans, where we had to figure out different things regarding sick humans and evolution. My design was detailed and I had it organized well, and I had all my reasoning and all that. My teacher again said that I had a lot of detail, I put a lot of thought into it. So achievement for me is where I'm actually recognized for what I have accomplished, and I have done all of my work and I've actually proved it, and it's recognized that I have done that. So I received a 4 on both finals, and I demonstrated my knowledge during these finals by using different sources and putting it on there, and then I received recognition for the work that I had done. This again connects to my metaphor of publishing a book, because once you finalize the book, you send it to the publishers who decide whether or not they're actually going to publish it. And if they do, then they recognize what you've done and the work that you put into it and how well you've actually done it, and yeah. So my reflection on this is you need to get your work done, ask for help if you need to actually structure and actually like connect different things, and if you do these things, you'll actually be able to succeed. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. All right, we'll probably finish up a note or two and then ask you a question when we're ready. question for you, Ethan, is what is a personal character trait you feel like you have been able to work on and improve in the last few years of high school, and how will that continue or be carried forward into your future?
I think that a character trait that I have developed would be, I mean, attempting to like problem solve almost. I mean, there's a lot of problems that I've had to deal with, and I think that I've just had to work on different things one at a time and try to figure out how to do it. And what was the second part?
How will you carry that into your future?
Well, again, there's going to be a lot of problems in my future and a lot of challenges, so I'm going to have to continue with my problem solving process, and I'm probably going to have to develop it, make improvements on it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ethan.
So Ethan, I liked your presentation in that, I mean, it was a great time for you to express like your achievement, and I could definitely tell that you worked really hard in high school and got a lot out of it. I'm wondering, you kind of talked about you were working on some problems or areas that you could improve, like what would one of those areas of growth be, and how did you learn from it? So how could you apply that?
Like one thing that I've improved, or one
Yeah,
thing I
like
need
one-
to continue to improve on?
I'm wanting you to look at like one area where you have grown, and so how can that help you in the future? How can you apply that?
Well, I think I've grown in my research skills. We had to do a lot of that for a senior project and other assignments I've had, and I've definitely improved on that, just using scholarly sources and actually developing that. And yeah, again, I'm gonna have to use that in my future, gathering information. Yeah.
Okay, great.
What is that future? Where are you headed from here?
So I'm planning on going to U of I and getting a degree in civil engineering. And then after that, I want to go into city planning and stuff like that, but I'm not sure if that's going to pan out exactly, but that's what I'm interested in right now. And then I might go for my master's degree, just depending on how it goes.
And you did your senior research essay on city planning.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
which is cool. Nice. Okay.
I was focusing mostly on transportation though.
True.
but, yeah.
That's true. They are connected, but yes, that's true. Okay. Thanks, Ethan. ready you're welcome to test the clicker. You are starting in about 3 minutes. And I'll let you know when you can begin. Sam, when you're ready.
Alright. Hello everyone, my name is Sam Tolman and this is my senior presentation. Alright, to start things off, my extended metaphor is fixing and maintaining your own car. My first standard is science, connected to the ideal of growth, and for my metaphor, this is learning a new repair. For my first artifact on my freshman biology cancer research presentation, we were assigned to choose a type of cancer and research it and present our findings for it. And as you can see here, I didn't put very much effort into it. I kept the blank background. The caption isn't great. The label is like unreadable. So the areas of improvement are slide theme, so like that white background, there's no contrast there. It just blends in with the whole image. The caption, I just said this is what a brain tumor looks like. It doesn't add anything to it. It's really like obvious. And the label, like it's super small. Even if it was part of the image, I could have added my own. That would have made it a lot better. And for my second artifact, I have my junior evolution of sick humans performance task. So this is not quite a presentation, but it was a final, and we were finding out how to solve biological mismatches in schools, like sleep deprivation caused by like early start times and late deadlines for homework, and then also like lactose intolerance with dairy being served in the cafeteria, like predominantly like normally there's always milk and there's always usually one dairy option. And there was 2 parts to it, so we created a design, either digital or hand-drawn. I chose the digital, and then we wrote written explanations for each design element with evidence that we got from the unit. So the areas of growth that I had were the use of color. So right here, I could I matched it up with, obviously that's like a soccer field, and that just makes it a lot more visually appealing and organized. And then detailed labels.
This one's a lot longer than the one I had in my last presentation, and it also is color coordinated with my design. And then finally, separate description of evidence. So unlike my caption in the last one, this is a lot more detailed. It actually uses real evidence, and it just really brings it together. So for growth, I achieved growth through increased effort. Obviously, I put a lot more effort in the second artifacts compared to the first, and more creativity and experimentation. The first project, I just did it to do it. This one I actually tried. I played around with the colors and designs until I got something that I liked, and then improved research and implementation. On the first artifact, I just looked up a couple links and called it good. On this one, we were researching the entire unit, and that connects to my metaphor. Like I said before, learning a new repair. So I put the image of a YouTube video on how to change your oil, because once you learn a new repair, then you can keep doing it over and over again. For my second standard, I have history, connected to the ideal of mastery. And once you've mastered car repair, you can kind of do whatever you want. So this guy's putting an engine in, just to show like he's mastered repairing cars. For my first artifact, I have my junior U.S. History Iroquois teaching project. This was an assignment. We were given a tribe, and we had to answer the question whether or not past and present governmental policies led their lives into disarray. And this one was a lot better. It was the first teaching project that I'd done like this rather than just a normal presentation. We asked the class questions in order to further understand it. And so some skills that led to mastery were linking questions to a specific area in the text to provide clarity. And what that does is it helps them know specifically what the question is relating to in the quote. Secondly, we're creating specific thought-provoking questions to promote deeper understanding. So then rather than asking like surface level questions like about a specific detail, it is more open-ended so they can dialogue about it, which is different than discussion because it prompts more connections rather than just the exchange of facts. And then finally, including the overarching question on every slide helps to emphasize its importance. It shows like the main purpose of the project and how that's what we're trying to teach. For my second artifact, I have my junior U.S. History Giver teaching project. So same kind of project, but on The Giver, which is a dystopian novel about the importance of memories. And I also did very well on this one. I received 4s on both artifacts. So some skills that led to mastery on this one were chunking talking points and questions with transitions to preserve focus. So instead of having it all up at once, I did it one by one so they don't move ahead and get distracted. Secondly, encouraging groups to dialogue on questions to further their understanding. So again, dialogue prompts more connections than just a discussion, and that helps them to understand it better. And then finally, using the whole quote on the slide so it can be constantly referenced. And what that does is, instead of just having the one bit of information like what I highlighted up there, it adds the context of the rest of the quote. So the skills that I've mastered are creating opportunities for class to dialogue, which helps them make connections. Teaching the class in a way that they will retain information and remember it. So rather than a basic presentation, we asked them questions, we were engaging in a way that was more conducive to their learning. And then finally, becoming an expert in a topic through research and preparation. In both of the projects, we did a lot of research either in the book or on the Iroquois tribe in order to become a master in it so that we could effectively teach it. And this connects to my metaphor, again, because once you've mastered something, you can kind of teach it, you can do whatever you want with it. It's a lot more freedom. This guy is rebuilding an engine, which again is not an easy task, and that shows his mastery. And then a personal connection is I've taught my friends how to do oil changes because I've mastered that myself. For my third and final standard, I have math connected to the ideal of so what. This is like the maintenance aspect of owning and repairing a car. For my first artifact, I have my senior calculus chapter 2 test. This was on the concept of limits, which tells you where the function will be approaching at a certain while the input is approaching a certain x value. On this test, I didn't do great. I got a 2.5 on this specific standard, and she left this comment that said, "A limit is what is approaching, not where the point is," which just shows my lack of understanding of the entire concept, which is very fundamental to calculus. So what led to this failure was an incomplete understanding. I had a cross-country meet the day we went over in class, so I just had the video, and it wasn't as complete of learning as compared to in class because I didn't have any discussion with other people or as many example problems. Secondly, a lack of studying. I just didn't put very much effort into that. And finally, insufficient preparation in terms of physical preparation like sleep, food, and water. For my second artifact, I have my senior calculus chapter 4 test. This was also covered limits as well as other standards in calculus. And on this one, I did a lot better. I got 4s on all of the limit standards as well as all of the other standards on the test. So what led to that success that I did differently was I practiced limits as well as the other standards. I used peer support through asking them questions, studying with them, and then I persevered despite my previous failure. So even though I didn't do as good as I wanted to on the last one, I just kept pushing through it. I didn't say to myself, "Oh man, I'm not good at limits." I didn't keep that fixed mindset, and that is what led to my success on this second test. So for my connection to so what, I'm choosing to connect it to growth mindset, which is learning from past mistakes. Obviously, I didn't give up, and I learned from my lack of studying so that I added more studying into my next test. I persevered through failure, so I didn't give up at all. I kept trying, even though I didn't do as good as I wanted to, and almost any damage can be repaired. So like my metaphor, if you break something on your car, you can almost always fix it if you try hard enough. And this connects to the metaphor as well, like the maintenance of a car. If you keep it well maintained, it will last a lot longer. And if you break something, then you'll try to avoid breaking it again in the same way. So for my overall connection to high school, for my so what, I have 2 main takeaways. The first one being effort determines success. What this means is the amount of effort you put into something directly correlates to how well you're going to do on it. It doesn't matter your individual capability. You could be really intelligent or really unintelligent, but the one who puts in the most effort is going to do better inevitably. And then secondly, help is always available, whether it's on assignments or just in general. If you need some kind of help, people will help you, even if you feel like they might not. And that was something really important to me because I've struggled with assignments as well as mental health issues, and having people there is a game changer. And how that applies to my life, how much effort I give determines what I will achieve. So in jobs, in relationships, in college, if I don't put in enough effort, I'm not going to get very much out of it. But on the other hand, if I put in as much effort as I possibly can, then I'll live a much more fulfilled and successful life. And then finally, there will always be people there to help me when I need it. Well, I'm always gonna go through stuff at some point, so it's important that I have support systems and people I can go to for help with that. Thank you.
Alright, thank you, Sam. We're going to finish up some notes and then we'll ask you questions when we're ready.
Okay.
Sam, my question for you is, you were mentioning that community is important to you, it helps you get through things. I completely agree. I think having positive and just good people around you in general, good character, those kind of people help you live a better life. So my question is, how are you that person or that community for the people around you? Like, what traits do you have, and how do you provide that for people around you?
So I think I can make friends pretty easily, just for like anyone, because like I'll meet someone else's friend and we'll just be friends instantly. So I try to be like a friend to anyone that I can be, not like excluding people. And then like if people reach out to me, I'll always try to help them in the best way that I can, the same way that I would expect them to help me if I reach out to them. And then I just try to make opportunities for people like to hang out with me.
Great, thank you.
I was going to ask similar, but you go. No, go ahead if you have. What's your ultimate goal for your career, life?
So I'm planning to go to ISU this fall to study either physics or engineering and pursue a career in that. Probably something automotive, as you can tell from the presentation, or just something along those lines with like math and science.
Okay, wow. Funny, we all are thinking alike. What are your biggest takeaways from Compass?
Well, I was here against my will. You can ask my mom for that. But I think overall it was good for myself. I learned definitely growth mindset is a big one. Like, if you tell yourself you can't do it, then you can't do it. But if you tell yourself that you can, then you have a lot better odds. And just like keep trying, even if like you get stuck. Yeah, you might mess up, but if you keep trying and if you don't give up, then you'll ultimately succeed.
Okay, thank you so much,
Awesome.
Sam.
Thank you.
Funny, I'm getting to see the same ones I watched the other day when I just happened to pop in and you guys were practicing. I had a preview.
I've got 45 seconds to just hang out. Sam went already. Good job, Sam. Colin, when you're ready, go ahead.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Colin Vaughn. I've been going to Compass for 9 years now, and this is my senior project presentation. I'll be telling you about the design process of my high school career. My first standard that I'll be discussing is growth mindset, which I'll be using to prove the ideal of so what, and I'll be connecting that to the identify and brainstorm step of the design process. So my first artifact for this standard is the signature assignment I completed as a final project in my Introduction to Film course during my junior year. This class was an elective that I took online, and for this final project, all the students in the class were required to pick a film from a list of approved directors, review that film based on certain criteria like cinematography and sound design, and then write a detailed essay summarizing and reviewing it in about a week's time frame. So on top of the detailed nature of the assignment and the time frame restrictions, the assignment was already a fairly large challenge, but for me, I was also upholding a B in the class at the time, and if you know me, that was obviously not going to fly. I knew that I wanted to get that up to an A before the end of the semester, and so with that short period of time, I started by just breaking down the rubric into this comprehensive outline I have shown here, making sure that I checked all the boxes on this rubric to ensure that I could receive full credit for the assignment, thinking this was kind of my final chance to raise that grade. In the end, I submitted the assignment, received 100% on it, but unfortunately it still wasn't quite enough to bump me into that territory for an A. And so that kind of brings me to my so what's for this assignment. The first major thing is the process of analytical thinking and writing. So for writing this assignment, obviously analyzing the film was the focal point of it, but approaching the entire writing process required a really analytical and organized approach in order to complete it in a timely manner. And so that brings me to the second one, which is time management. Obviously, expecting to complete such a large-scale assignment in such a short period of time was a big ask. So time management skills were very important for this situation. And thirdly, most importantly, was growth mindset. In this situation, I could have just accepted the fact that this was my final project and then I wasn't going to have a chance to raise the grade anymore. But I came back to the drawing board and began to think of other ways that I could come back and bring it up. And so that brings me to my second artifact, which is the email exchange between me and the professor, where I essentially recalled a quiz from earlier in the semester where I had technical difficulties, and then expressed that it was my responsibility for not bringing it up sooner, but that I mentioned that I felt that the grade didn't properly represent my knowledge of the subject, and that I would have loved to more accurately show what I knew if given the opportunity. And so through this email, she replied, and she said that she would be glad to reopen the quiz for me, which allowed me to retake it. The next day, I ended up receiving 100% on it, which, no exaggeration, I got into an 89.51%, which bumped me into an A for the semester, allowing me to complete my goal. And so this obviously highlights self-advocacy as a so what, because without advocating for myself to the professor, I wouldn't have ever given myself the opportunity to raise that grade. Secondly is, of course, professional communication skills. If I hadn't approached the professor in such a professional manner, I wouldn't have been able to, again, have that opportunity likely. And thirdly, is problem-solving skills. Again, my first solution of just working hard on the final project didn't necessarily work out, but it kind of paved the path for me to find the solution and come up with another solution to the problem. And so that all connects to the step of identifying and brainstorming, because in this step of the design process, you start off by recognizing that there's an issue that exists. In this case, I just knew that I wanted to raise my grade, and then although my first solution wasn't the end-all be-all solution I wanted it to be, I still found another way to get around it and work it out. And so my second standard then is English, and I'll be proving that, or using that to prove the ideal growth, and I'll be connecting that to the step of prototyping and testing in the design process. So my first artifact here is the pastoral poetry short response that I completed during my 10th grade English class. For this assignment, all the students were required to read a list of poems with pastoral themes, and then review one of our favorites based on certain things like concrete language, enjambment, and diction, other literary techniques like that. So for this, my thesis reads, in the poem, The Nileside Walk of Life, there are several instances where various literary elements such as diction and concrete language are used in order to support the developing tone that causes the theme shift to focus from the narrative reflections of the values commonly expected in pastoral poetry to representation of conflict. Which, if you don't understand what that means, neither do I, and neither does Mrs. Lyons. At the time, she referenced that, saying it was a very wordy sentence. And then later in the essay also pointed out a different part, mentioning that the organization of my writing could create further clarity. Also mentioning that I needed more conciseness in my writing and less wordy introductions, and summarized it all by saying that I was in the habit of being wordy and fluffy in attempts to sound smart when I should have just let the writing speak for itself and get the good grade that way. At the time, I submitted this assignment, and this was one of the first major ones I completed, so I expected a good grade on it. And I received these comments with a 2.5, and at the time took it very personally. I viewed these comments as much more of a personal attack on me as a writer and much less constructive feedback, which brings me to where I started out in my path of growth in English. My writing started off with a lot of wordiness and rambling. The organization of my writing was really poor. But most importantly, I had a really negative response to the feedback that I received on my writing, which didn't allow me to see the full picture and allow me to grow through the experience and the things that I wasn't doing well on. And so that brings me to contrasting this with my second artifact, which is the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight essay, which I wrote for a semester of this year. In this assignment, we were also required to read a class text. In this case, it was the story Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. And then we were meant to review that based on any topic within that story and connect it to research that we conducted outside of the class materials. And so for this, my thesis reads, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is not just a romantic telling of a knight's chivalry, but is an instrument within England's colonial agenda, having challenged traditional Welsh values through its inclusion of religious themes, disparaging linguistic representation, and contradictory interpretations of King Arthur's lineage. Now this thesis is obviously still fairly complex, but it's used to represent a much more complex idea, and so its intricacy and kind of run-on nature is a little bit more warranted. And so, although I received 4 on this assignment, Ms. Stevens did still have some comments on it. She mentioned at one point that I could include more research about the history of Wales in order to support my connections a little bit better. At another point, she mentioned that, or she pointed out that I had some evidence that kind of actually supported a counter-argument to my main claim, which weakened my overall thesis. And so all of this was much more, or I viewed this in a much more constructive light compared to how I did in 12th or in that 10th grade. And so this kind of resembles where I ended up in my path of growth in English. My writing had improved a lot in conciseness. I have become a lot more effectively organized in my writing projects. And third, and most importantly, I've attained a much more positive response to the feedback I receive on my assignments that allows me to see the full picture and allows me to grow through the things that I don't do so well on. So that brings me to the connection to the metaphor. For prototyping and testing, this step can essentially just be summarized by the word growth. In prototyping and testing, you have to essentially fail and fail and fail until you find something that works. And that can be discouraging if you allow it to discourage you, if you don't allow yourself to see the full picture. But when you allow yourself to step back and realize how far you've come, that is how you eventually succeed. So for my third standard, this is technology. I'll be connecting it to the ideal of achievement and connecting all of that to the step of implementing and finalizing the design process. So my first artifact here is the 2023 Robotics State Championship. For this season, this was during my junior year, we were required to build a robot that could essentially play Frisbee golf. This was the robot Shoddy. It weighed 30 pounds. It was ridiculously slow, and but we had made it consistent over the course of the season. And so it served us well at the state championship. We went undefeated in our qualification rounds, which allowed us to make it all the way to the finals, although we did end up short, placing second in the tournament. And then we ended up winning the second most prestigious judged award, which qualified us for the world championship. And so with all those things in mind, physical accomplishments of the awards we received is obviously a major achievement because not a lot of Idaho teams make it that far. Secondly, though, is the fact that we proved ourselves as competitors, not just to the teams around us, but to ourselves. As a second-year team, it was to ourselves, it was pretty impressive that we were able to kind of hang with the people around us who've been doing it for years. And then thirdly, it was also the foundation for our future success, because even though we entered the competition with really lofty goals and we didn't complete them all the way, we knew what we needed to do for the next season, which brings me to my next artifact, which is the 2024 state championship. In this case, this is our robot Batty. We focused this season a lot more on the much more strict approach to the design process. So the robot is much more streamlined and it completes its goals much more consistently and efficiently. And in the end, we had very similar success to how we did in the first season, where we went 6-0 in our qualification rounds and then won the tournament this time around. We won the top judged award, and we also won the solo skills portion of the competition, which is a trifecta that's never been completed by an Idaho team before. So we were super proud of that, and that obviously is the first major area of accomplishment here. But secondly, for me personally, is the mastery that I had in a personal pursuit. Because robotics is something that's very important to me, this accomplishment was kind of a representation of the culmination of effort and work that I put into this all year. And so I was really proud to have really just something really strong to show for all of the effort that I put into something I care about. Thirdly, is just the completion of goals. As I mentioned before, this year we came in with the same goals that we had the previous season, but this time we had a much more clear idea of how we needed to approach it in order to succeed, and we did so. And so this all connects to the final step of the design process of implementation and finalizing. Because in this step of the design process, this is where you finally achieve something. This is where you finally come up with a viable product that is kind of a representation of all the work and the hard work that you put into it. And so the key lessons that I've learned can kind of be summarized between each standard. For growth mindset, it revealed to me the importance of self-advocacy and professionalism in your personal success. For English, I learned to respond constructively to feedback and what that means for personal growth. And finally, in technology, I discovered my passion for engineering, which will carry me through college and has kind of obviously determined the entire theme of this presentation. In approaching high school with the mindset of the design process in mind, it hasn't just allowed me to get good grades, but it's allowed me to learn what it means to fail, to grow through those failures, and to succeed in the end. Not just in an English class or a film class, but in every arena of life. It's taught me what it means to be ambitious and what it means to be committed to yourself and your own goals. And those are lessons that aren't just valuable in high school or in college, but will be valuable for the rest of my life. Thank you so much, and I'm now ready for any questions you may have.
Actually, I was just curious, like, where did you learn the design process from?
That was, so for robotics, I was the engineering notebook. I did it with Tana this year, but for the second year, that's where I kind of really understood like the strictness of it. I've kind of been involved in robotics since middle school. I did Lego robotics then. And so I kind of got a feel for a little bit of it, but we never really had like a strict approach to it. But this year in robotics and then last year, I really got familiar with it and learned how to kind of describe how you think about the design process, which kind of makes it kind of connect it to a lot of different things when you are to think about it that thoroughly.
All right, I have a question. So you talked about how you were able to take criticism in writing, and I think you've done that quite well. So sort of just an opportunity for you to show off a bit. How do you think you have improved in your writing, and where do you think your writing is now? Thinking of maybe like the last couple essays you wrote, your senior essay, something like that.
Yeah. So I think I kind of mentioned like conciseness has improved a lot. I still am victim to not being, obviously being very wordy at times. I like to be fancy with my writing. But I think that in a lot of the writing assignments I've done this year, I took it further than I think was intended a little bit, where rather than just writing the prompt at face value, I would take it and make it into something that I had a personal interest in or take more interest in it. Like for example, in that assignment with the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight essay, I believe it was meant to be 7 to 8 pages and it ended up being 10 or 11 or something, just because I found so many different topics that I wanted to bring up and discuss in it. And so things like that, like becoming more interested and invested in my writing has helped. And then for my senior research essay, I feel like not just analyzing the core problem, but also analyzing all of the problems that stem from it and all the problems that feed into it, for me, made that a lot more engaging, and I feel like showcased my skills as a writer a lot more.
So just complex thinking, individual thinking helps you be a better writer.
Sure.
Which you've applied. Awesome. Thanks, Colin.
So Colin, you got to go on the trip, right? You guys, when you went on the school trip, it's not really
Yes.
school trip,
Yeah.
but non-school school trip.
Right.
So what was that experience like, and has it sparked any passion for you to travel somewhere else, and where and why?
That's a good question. I had a ton of fun on it. It was great. It's tough to say. Yeah, like it was really eye-opening because like you hear about Europe and all that kind of stuff, but then you don't get to like really experience it until you're like in Europe, obviously. So yeah, I think it was eye-opening because I just got to see how people live their lives a lot differently there versus here. I will say I don't think that I would ever want to live in a big city in Europe after being out there. But I would definitely love to travel. I think I'd love to see Rome at some point just because of the history there. And who knows, maybe, you know, in the far future, if I were to study abroad or something, it'd be cool to go over there too. But yeah.
Can we have 4 questions, or is that out of bounds?
He has time for another question. Yeah, he does. Yeah.
You're passionate about robotics. I just was wondering, in your opinion, what does participating in robotics teach students? And 2-part question, will you somehow continue that, your participation?
Sure. So I think the biggest thing, obviously, engineering is huge for that. If you're interested in that, then it's gonna exponentially increase your interest in that. But also teamwork and leadership skills, for me, have been super strengthened by that. Learning how to resolve conflict and things like that as a team and in a constructive way are definitely a huge thing. Just like those soft skills have been really improved through robotics. In college, it would, if I have the opportunity to be a part of robotics, I think that would be a great way to kind of like apply my, I'm planning on going to mechanical engineering, so it would be a great way to kind of apply what I'm learning in like a hands-on fashion. But I also know that I think there's a team up there that you can mentor, so I might look into that a little bit. But yeah, it'd be great to be involved in it past the end of high school. I had a lot of fun in it.
Cool. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you so much.
You don't want to mess up your whole process.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a minute and a half. So. Seconds even.
Hello, my name is Haven Heyer, and this is my senior project. And for my metaphor, I used a game of softball. And for my artifacts or standards, I represent them as the three main bases. So to start on the first base, my first artifact is, my standard is growth mindset with the idea of so what. So my first artifact comes from 9th grade of Get to Know You. This was assigned by my Spanish teacher just to give us a little introduction of ourselves to him. So one of the slides was, what is something you are nervous about this year? And I said that I'm nervous about meeting new people because I just don't want to meet new people. And I had a very fixed mindset during this time. I just didn't have a growth mindset. I didn't want to know people. I didn't think there's any growth to meeting new people with like new personalities and learning more about other people. And I was stuck in my comfort zone a lot because I was afraid with my fears of social anxiety and my speech impediment. I was afraid of people judging me for who I was. And didn't really think there was no opportunity of growing my social skills because I had my own little people of friends and just like, yep, these are my people I'm gonna keep with. But I should have a growth mindset about my future and my long term. And trying to get over my social anxiety and just grow as a person in general, making new friends, making new connections and opportunities. And so this leads into my second artifact, which comes from 10th grade communications. And it's a year review where we had a list of topics and we chose 5 of them. And one of my topics I chose was misjudging someone, where I misjudged someone and they became my best friend. So I want to highlight some few sentences, and this first sentence was, new people, hopefully I don't have to meet them. I dislike meeting new people and I prefer not to speak with them. And the other one is, I thought he would despise me. I had a very fixed mindset because I just didn't want to get out of my comfort zone because all I want to do was go home and sleep. And my last line is, now they're my best friend, where this is where my growth mindset comes in. So I had a very fixed mindset. I was judging them for who they were, even without knowing them. And I was judging myself because of previous experience with other people. And I just didn't want new people because of my social anxiety. But I also had a growth mindset towards the end where I had better judgment. I learned not to judge people based on what they look or who they are. New people means new opportunity, like how this person came to me and I came to them. It was a group effort to become friends. And now I learned more than ever with them. And with my outcome, I just got a best friend out of it.
So this all connects to my ideal of so what. I didn't have a big picture of what I wanted to do in life and didn't think meeting new people is a big deal. But it is a big deal because this is where everything started for my freshman year, like first base. When you go to first base, this is where everything started to reach that home base because you have to hit the first base in order to move on. So this leads into my second base, which my second standard is Japanese elective with the idea of mastery. So before I get into my artifact, I heard that Japanese is a very hard language to learn, but I wanted to learn it because I like a challenge, and plus my sister was going to Japan. So I wanted to learn more about them and how to speak. So my first artifact comes from sophomore year on the lessons of like and dislike lessons. So for this, we had to translate English phrases and sentences back into Japanese. So I had different reflections about this. So I have my grade, corrections, skills, and my practice. So the grade I got, there was no really grade, but there was a smiley face to indicate that she was satisfied with my practice, and I was satisfied with mine. I had only 2 corrections because I misread what the sentence said, and I used the wrong preposition. And this reflects my skills because this is like 2 months into the year, and I already knew how to use like and dislike and how to write in hiragana, which is one of the alphabets in Japanese. With my practice, all I used was my resources in my textbook and asked my teacher how to use like and dislike and how to use ga wa, which is a sentence connection, and why it was that way. And this leads into my second artifact, which is my semester 1 Japanese test. So this is the end of my sophomore year, where we had to translate phrases, sentences, and questions in English back into Japanese. So this reflects with the same list of my grades, correction skills, and my practice. So for my grade, I got a 4, meaning that I was able to be proficient in my class and understand the material that was given to me. I only had a few corrections because I misspelled a few things or added a word, which relates into my skills because I still understood the material. I'm a quick learner, and because I was a quick learner, I was able to pick up on a hard language. But to me, it was a very easy language to learn. And this is felt because just because I didn't fail or had major corrections doesn't mean I stopped practicing. I kept using my resources, my textbook, my teachers, even my classmates. So this all leads to my second base metaphor, because with mastery, you have to understand the material and learn why it's that way. Because if you ace on something but you don't understand the material, you're not a mastery at it. You just guess. You're lucky. But for me, I understood what was happening with the material and how to translate English back to Japanese. And this relates to my second base because for second base there are rules for the second base. For like second base, you can't cross over. You have to stick on your base because if you cross over, you're not safe. You're able to be tagged out. And when you're on second base, you either stay on second base or you move to third base. So you have to hit that second base to go on to third base. So my third base metaphor with the standard of math with the ideal of achievement. So my first artifact is my pre-calculus test 3 from senior year. So from what we can tell, I didn't get a good grade on my standard. I got a 2, which means that I didn't understand the material that I thought I did. And I had 3 questions when I got my test back. And the 3 questions is why did I get that grade? What's the meaning of that grade, and how can I do better? So why did I get that grade? I got that grade because I didn't study the material that I should have. I needed to study more out of my time and more time management. And the meaning of the grade is that I didn't meet the expectations. I was struggling and I need to work on that material so I can understand why we got the answer that we got. And how can I do better? So when I got this test back, I was thinking of ways that I can do better. I didn't think myself as a failure. I just saw it as I need to do better and I just have room to grow. So I set myself for success by setting up a goal, by taking my time out of my day, out of school, to study the material until I understood the material. So I can ace that test the next time I had that same question. Which leads into my second artifact, my pre-calculus test score, which is the next one for my senior class. So as you can tell, I got a 3.5, meaning that I reached my goal and I studied until I did better. So when I got my test back, I still had the 3 questions. Why did I get that grade? What's the meaning of the grade? And how can I do better? So the meaning of why did I get that grade is because I studied my butt off. I took time in my day out of school and make sure I understood the material until I didn't need to look at the back of the textbook. I understood why we got that answer. And what's the meaning of the grade? The meaning of the grade is I met the expectation, but I could still do better. I have the basic understanding of the material, but I still struggle with the material. And how can I do better? Since I almost got a 4, it doesn't mean I need to stop studying. I will keep trying to understand the material to the point that I have no correction. And I understand that the reason why I got that grade. And my overall reflection to this is that even though I got almost a 4, doesn't mean I need to stop. I still struggle with this because I got a tiny little correction based on the graph. And that's where I was struggling. And this all connects to the ideal of achievement because I made a goal for myself and I made sure that I tried to reach that achievement. Even though I didn't achieve that 4, I still met my goal to a certain extent. And with third base, you have to make a goal for yourself. If you don't make a goal for yourself to home base, then you're not going to make to home base. You have to put that effort in order to make to the home base. Which this all leads into my home plate, which with my final lessons, I connected all this to 3 different topics, which is the first one is live ball. So when you hit the ball, that's when everything starts, the game plays. So this represents my first year of starting high school, where Compass was setting up for me for success. And for bases, it's the stages for me to figure out what lessons and what classes that will help me to my journey. And I set the bases in order as like my grade order for my artifacts because you have to go in order for able to reach your home base or your career. Because if you skip a base, then you're all just confused, lost, and you don't know what to do. And for my final one is my home plate. So home plate for me is my end of my high school journey. And Compass is setting me up for success and
we'll finish up a few notes and then ask questions.
ask first?
Please do.
I don't know if this is-
Yeah, there's no
Um,
specific order.
I don't know if this is something you're willing to talk about, but I had never knew that you had a speech impediment. You brought that up. And so I think that's amazing that you've kind of overcome that. In your freshman year, where you were bringing that in of not wanting to talk with other people or meet new people, how would you talk to someone who is in your position as a freshman? How would you talk to them and counsel them about meeting people and such?
So for me, people came to me and I was very surprised, and they didn't judge me for who I was and my speech impediment. So that encouraged me to get a job, and that even helped me with my speech impediment. So if I had any words for people that struggle, I say that don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because if you don't put yourself out there, you don't make improvement to yourself like how I have.
Very true.
And maybe tell me what your future aspirations are. What are you doing after home? Now you've reached home base. What are you doing after home base?
So I am going to U of I for architect, and I'm going there for 4 years, and after that I want to work in Boise where there's an architect company, or start my own company.
Cool. Architecture. I may have a niece who just is graduating from that program at U of I.
Okay, what is a personal passion or hobby that you have that you'd like to carry into the rest of your life?
I would like to have softball as a hobby. So like U of I, there's no softball team, but there is a softball club. So I want to go into that so I can keep up with that hobby and keep that inspiration going.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you, Haven.
Yes, thank you.
Alrighty, last one for the day. We got our stuff up.
We're going to look at the smiles on our faces. Yes. Yeah, we'll keep smiling.
Can I test it to see if it's okay?
Yeah. Okay. You see?
Hello everybody, my name is Tana Bond and this is my senior project presentation. And as you can tell by the title of my presentation, Writing a Story of My High School Journey, I've chosen to connect my high school experience to the metaphor of writing a book. So my first standard that I'm going to focus on is the standard of history, which I prove through the ideal of achievement. This is my first artifact, which is from my 11th grade US history class. This is my The Giver presentation. And for this presentation, we were assigned a chapter of the book we were reading at the time, which was called The Giver. And this book is about a young boy named Jonas who escapes his dystopian society that he's forced to live in. And so basically, for this presentation, we were directed to teach the class about not only the content of the chapter, but also the connections that could be made to the chapter. And to do this, we would pick a quote from the book and ask a question to help guide our classmates towards our overarching question of, is Jonah selfish for acting upon his worldview and leaving behind his society? So taking a look at the rubric for this assignment, here are some of the 4 level qualities that we met. We asked challenging, thought-provoking,
questions that cause students to think deeply. We presented the information clearly, concisely, and logically, and we created an environment of dialoguing which brought clear and enriched understanding of the message to our classmates, basically creating synergy throughout the classroom. So, of course, I felt very achieved in achieving the level grade of a 4-level grade, but I also felt a lot of achievement in taking on this new style of presenting information, as well as pushing my classmates to make these historical, cultural, and personal connections to the text. And overall, I felt the most achievement in the development of my worldview based on my own personal research and connections to this chapter of The Giver. My second artifact is from my 12th grade. Here, this is my National History Day website. The NHD competition picks a new prompt to guide students in their research, and this year the prompt was turning points in history. So my partner and I chose to focus on the Salem witch trials and their effect on the government. So as you can see, this is how we organized all of our information and research. We have the historical context, the tragedy and the turmoil of the event, religion and government connection, and the actual turning points that occurred. And this was all to help direct our thesis. To shorten my thesis, this reads, "The tragedy, hysteria, and turmoil of the Salem witch trials prove that religious extremism cannot coexist with human law within a government governing body due to its potential to violate representative governing ideologies." So here's the rubric for this assignment, and here's some of the comments that my teacher left. He wrote that we had exceptional organization of our primary pictures and excerpts. We had a great exposition of our thesis, and our topic headings provided perfect clarity. And overall, the website just had a collegiate level. And so this resulted in a grade of a 4. And just like my previous artifact, I felt very achieved in receiving this grade. However, I also felt very achieved in my research and organizational skills, as well as being able to develop this nuanced and complex thesis that makes these historical connections. And overall, I felt the most achieved in the development of my worldview based on the historical research that I was able to make about the Salem witch trials. So to connect this to my metaphor, I've connected the ideal of achievement to writing the first draft of a book, which can be considered the first big accomplishment in the writing process. So my second standard is the standard of math, which connects to the ideal of growth. Here's my first artifact, which is from my 11th grade pre-calculus class. This is my cumulative test 5, which was made up of new topics that we had just learned, as well as spiraling topics that we had already been tested on. And this standard of graphing rational functions was a spiraling topic. And as you can see, I clearly didn't know how to graph this function. The red shows my annotations after I took the test, showing that I didn't properly graph it, which showed my teacher, Ms. Gregg, and myself that I didn't understand what any of this work meant in a graphing application, which of course resulted in the grade of a 2.5. So there's evident need for growth in my understanding behind math processes are used, why are they used, and how they are used, as well as my studying and test preparation. I obviously didn't study for this portion of the test. And overall, there's a need for growth in my motivation and mindset towards the subject. I entered into my math class with stuck in the mindset that I wasn't good at math, meaning I couldn't enjoy it. So of course I needed to escape that fixed mindset. This is my second artifact, which is from the same class, pre-calculus, and this is my cumulative test 7. And looking at this graph, even though this is a more complex function, I was able to graph it properly, which showed my teacher that I understood what all of this work meant in a graphing application, which of course resulted in the grade of a 4. So, along with the growth in my grade, I had a growth in my understanding of why and how math processes are used, as well as my study and test preparation habits. And overall, there was a growth in my motivation and mindset and enjoyment for math. I finally understood that just because I'm not good at math doesn't mean I can't learn from my mistakes and enjoy the process of that. So, to connect this back to my metaphor, I've connected the ideal of growth to revising and editing a book. And I want to refer back to the first portion of my metaphor, which is achieving the first draft. It's important to understand that first drafts are never perfect. You need the revising and editing to recognize your mistakes and grow from them until you get to your final draft. So my third standard is community service, which proves the ideal of so what. For my first artifact, I have my community service logs from 9th and 10th grade. And as you know, 9th and 10th graders are required to complete a certain number of hours of community service. And looking at my log, the highlighted portions show that I did most of my service as barn work for my 9th grade log and my 10th grade log. And so basically this meant I would go out to my local horse riding barn and I would scoop the horse manure, clean the stalls, feed, water the horses, and just keep up an overall barn maintenance. And so I didn't just do this to fulfill the needs of my community service. I was approached by my horse trainer at the time, who expressed that she was very overwhelmed with all of the chores she had to do, along with horse riding lessons. So I took that off of her shoulders and did her barn chores so she could do her lessons. So a primary so what that I got from this was learning that any interest can become an opportunity to serve the community. I got to do something I love while helping out my community, which a lot of people don't think of when they think of community service. And overall, I learned that communities are based on the foundation of community service. I got to do something I love while helping the community that I love. This is my second artifact, which is from my 11th grade year. Although 11th graders aren't required to do volunteer work, I was put in an opportunity where I did so. This is from the STEAM Expo, which Compass puts on every year to represent the science, technology, engineering, art, and math opportunities that Compass has to offer. And so a part of the STEAM Expo is the robotics club portion. And as you can see, Colin and Sam volunteered to set up the robotics portion, represent it, and take it all back in. And of course, 2 people is already not a lot for this, but unfortunately, Sam wasn't able to make it, leaving Colin to do it all by himself. So I stepped in to help him out. And here's a photo of us at the STEAM Expo. I helped build mini robots for kids to drive, and I helped set it up and take it all back down. So a major so what that I got from this was learning that community service provides new experiences that can spark new interests. I had no interest in robotics before this, but after learning about it, I became very interested, which led me to join the robotics team the next year. I also was able to learn a lot while helping teach others in my community, something I find very important. And overall, again, I learned that communities are based on the foundation of community service. I was able to help Colin out, which helped the STEAM Expo, which helped Compass overall. So to connect this back to my metaphor, I've connected the ideal of so what to publishing the final draft of your book. When you publish your book, you get to see what your work really means to people, and you essentially get to see the so what of all of the work that you put into your book. And I feel this perfectly represents what I achieved for my so what through my community service. So, in conclusion, here are some overarching lessons that I've taken from each of these standards. History developed my worldview through historical, cultural, and personal connections. Math grew my motivation, mindset, and enjoyment for difficult subjects. And community service taught me that service is the foundation for a community. And although I may not use history in my everyday life, or math in my everyday life, or community service in my everyday life, but I will take these lessons that I've learned and apply them to every single aspect of my life. And though this is the end of my high school experience, I will take all these lessons that Compass has taught me and use them to write the next chapter of my life. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to finish some notes and then ask a few questions.
Mentioned not being good at math or not thinking that you were good at math, and then growing through there. And I'd like to just say I completely agree. I remember when we started out 10th grade together, now in calculus together, and it's been a pleasure to see how much you've grown. I'd like to challenge your one statement where you said you're not good at math, and I would like to say that you are good at math. So where are you headed in the future? Does it include math? Does it include community service? What is in your future?
So I will be attending Idaho State University this fall to do their nursing program. And then I will be working as a registered nurse while going back to school to get my master's in nursing so I can become a nurse practitioner. And like I said, even though math isn't really involved in nursing, I will definitely use that growth mindset aspect that math has taught me, which I think would be very important for a nursing career.
Nice. I can see how your mindset with community service will also help with your future career as well, and I found that really meaningful, and so I hope you continue to keep that community service mindset for your life, because it's really great. My question is, what is something you have either read or written this year that you found cool, interesting? What did you learn from it?
This year?
This year. Anything you read or wrote?
Anything? Okay. I really enjoyed, what did we just read in English? Why am I blanking?
What did we just read in English? I know also. Okay, we finished with Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies, that's what.
Okay.
Yes. I really, sorry, I blanked. I really liked Lord of the Flies. Just with the philosophy aspect of it, and really it's of course not just a book about boys surviving in the forest. It has a lot more of a philosophical connection. And yeah.
Okay. All right. Ken, I can't remember. Did you start Compass in 8th grade?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me what you would tell an incoming student to Compass, whether it be 8th grade or 9th grade, because it's kind of a hard time to come in. Colin, who you like a little bit, has been here since kindergarten or something. I don't know. So tell me what you would tell an incoming student.
Yeah, I would tell an incoming student to don't just have confidence in yourself. Before Compass, I did not get good grades at all. I actually almost failed 6th grade math, and so basically I was just kind of stuck in that mindset where I didn't think I was I had the mindset that some people are meant for school and others aren't, and I thought that I wasn't really meant for school. And so Compass kind of helped me grow my view on that, and obviously I get a lot better grades now, and I'm going to ISU in their honors college. So I think just having an open mind to what you can do is really important.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
Okay. I know, I was
I might have to borrow some of the other ones back there to some
I know, you're more than welcome to, because even yesterday I was like, I'm gonna redo that one.
Well, it's hard, it's like when you watch the first one, and that's kind of the first bar, and then all of a sudden now you watch it.
I know.
You're like, oh, I might wanna go back.
100%. I get that, it's tough, but you're more than welcome to share.
So, questions about that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, for her it's a few seconds.
Okay, well, that's what I was thinking, or hoping you would say.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, this is happening.
So
No. Okay.
The relief of being done for
Yeah.
them, and probably for you.
I know, yesterday I was like, I think I was nervous as well today.
is. You know, I was like,
I'm like, how much do I have to compulsory check out of school's press
All right, seniors for this room. Oh, hello. You're not seniors. You guys are good to go. You're done. One donut. If you already got it, it's yours. But if you haven't gotten a donut yet, those are your guys' treats. And then you're free to have a lovely day. You may have schoolwork to do. I would say take a break for a little while, and then go back. It's like you're still in school, okay? But maybe take a break and reward yourself and have a good day.
and
okay?
is the other group still in session? So are we
Yeah,
still
they're still in
quiet
session for a
house?
while.
Yes.
You still need to be silent.
Okay.
Yeah, don't be like, walk out there and be like, ah, okay, yeah. Please be silent and respectful. Okay, have a lovely day, guys, bye.
Are you guys going to do some?
Not too much longer. We're almost there.
Yes, in 20 minutes.
Yes.
And
Okay.
in about -10 seconds.
They're
probably-
take a break as well.
They're probably waiting in the hallway. I'm like, oh.
Is it your seniors or, yeah, or you have sophomores?
Do I have another class?
I didn't think you had sophomores yet.
Wait a second. Is lunch?
Yeah,
lunch?
I do.
Oh.
I do have a class right now.
Oh, which group?
My sophomore. Yes. Yes, I'm aware.
So you want to have them come help you?
No, that's still not here.
Okay.
Yeah, the country edition.
Yeah. If it's possible, don't we take this stuff out?
Sure. There's maybe, yeah. It's a smaller class, so they don't need those desks. But.
Well, I think you went through the desks. They might be gone.
Yeah, I got exactly the number we need because it was either 4 boxes or 5, and it was 5. It was like. Yeah.
Will you grab that box?
Okay. Woo. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're going to get, I'll tell Josh to turn that camera off.
Please do.
I don't even know what it was gonna say on this one, so I don't know how.
Oh, who was it? Do you want me to?
No.
Okay. Hi guys, welcome in. Find a seat somewhere. That works. I will be ready for you guys in just a minute. You can settle in, and I would recommend you pull out the directions that are for your final, because that's what we're going to talk about. I did just, as you know, finish senior projects, so I kind of need to get my mind back into class and get some sides of. Also, have a class. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, Miss Greg's gonna help me out. So while I transition and eat something today, pull out the final, sit with your groups somehow because the final will be a group presentation. So what you can do is just read all the directions. If you guys remember the Odyssey presentation, this is gonna be super similar to that. So kind of keep that in mind for this. And then when I come back, I'll be ready to like kind of re-explain and answer questions about what the directions say, okay? It's the self-selected groups that you've been having this whole unit, yes. Oh.
Also, I can't sit right there, so I'm bringing over another chair. So yeah, I can sit here. We can't sit here.
Yeah, it's taped to the ground.
Sit right here. Dude, you can sit. Do you not want to sit next to Miles?
No, they just want to Popping is so You're making more stuff.
Alright, if you guys don't know where to find it, it's right here. It's this.
Okay, thank you. It's gotta be 8:32. Huh? It's gotta be within 8 to 11 minutes. The time of fish. Bro, I have almost 10 minutes. Right there. Why are they so specific in numbers?
Yeah, when you go to the slideshow. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say we should do camera. Because it's easier to
PG. Darn it.
It just depends on what format we use. Like present it.
Yeah, like which I don't think it requires you to click it.
Yes, it does. I am reading it right now.
Where?
We copied there's much of what you're not. Oh, so we're presenting vocabulary. That's what she just said. We're literally presenting vocabulary. Copy I think from. Look at the she said it was like something with whatever. I just created. I just don't try that. Every time I try something, it's blocked. I do like it because you're analyzing these things and feel free to change it from original performance. So like on the
What?
The time. Oh yeah, in 8 minutes or seconds too. Dude, if you're 30, like more than 36 out of the way, you get a 0. Yeah, I like
Oh
yeah, bro. It's on the right side. The little fine print. I'm on the right. You got 36.
That's stupid.
Yeah, oh, it's just yeah.
Okay, wait, no, I just want to remember that.